Chapter 546. Chuli frowned. They can't be used anymore. Yes. Ma Kuin was gloating in his heart. Seeing that Chuli worked so hard for nothing, and that the people he exchanged for could not be used, he must be frustrated. Seeing that he was unhappy was the greatest joy to her. Chuli asked, "Did the commander and the others say that?" The commander definitely can't say it out loud, or else it would be too chilling, but everyone understands. Ma Kuin shook his head and said seriously, "What if something goes wrong if they are used? Everyone does things for merit and not for mistakes." Chuli slowly nodded. Although Ma Kuin did not have good intentions, what he said was the truth. These secret guardians that were exchanged were in an awkward situation. They could not be used and could only be kept. In fact, it was no different from being in the Tempest Temple. Ma Kuin said, "Centurion, it's hard to say whether or not they betrayed us. The Tempest Temple's dermic base is profound. Under the influence of day and night, how many people can resist? They might even believe in the dermic base." Chuli said, "Believing in the dermic base doesn't necessarily mean that they betrayed the secret Guardian's Hall. As long as they believe in the dermic base, they will have a good impression of the Tempest Temple. This way, it's easy to let down their guard and even unintentionally reveal the secret of the house." Ma Kuin shook his head. "The Tempest Temple is very good at controlling people's hearts." "Yes, that makes sense." Chuli nodded and urged his horse to speed up. Ma Kuin let out a smile. He finally found some fun. Taking care of Chuli was a piece of cake. So what if he was strong in martial arts? He was secretly pleased and urged his horse to catch up. However, Zhou Lingfeng, who was in his arms, began to squirm. He knew very well how powerful Zhou Lingfeng was. He killed people like flies. Even the secret Guardian's Hall did not know how many people he had killed. If Zhou Lingfeng woke up, he would be the first to suffer. He quickly sealed Zhou Lingfeng's acupuncture point. Zhou Lingfeng suddenly froze and stopped. Ma Kuin secretly sighed in relief. He looked up at Chuli, who was already far away, and was secretly angry. Chuli must have purposely made him suffer to scare him. After a while, Zhou Lingfeng began to move again. He rode with Zhou Lingfeng in his arms, so he was very sensitive to the slightest movement. Seeing that something was wrong, he sealed Zhou Lingfeng's acupuncture point again. Zhou Lingfeng calmed down again. For the rest of the journey, he would seal his acupoints every once in a while. He was extremely busy and fearful. The two of them exited the East City Gate and were greeted by a wide official road. The south and north gates of the fairy's capital were the busiest. Outside the East Gate was the royal enclosure. Other than that, there were some small towns and villages. There were no big cities, so there were not many people. When they came out, there was almost no one on the official road. Chuli urged the horse to go a mile away and arrived at the side of a dense forest. He raised his voice and said, "Fa Yuan, come out." Umaba. Fa Yuan chanted the name of Buddha and descended from the treetop. His gray monk's hat fluttered in the wind as he pressed his palms together. "Almsgiver Chu, we have been waiting for you for a long time." Chuli replied, "I was delayed by something. Zhou Lingfeng is here. Where are our people? Almsgivers, please come out." Fa Yuan raised his voice. 12 horses came out of the forest. Apart from the 3 middle-aged monks, there were 9 other people. 4 old men, 1 middle-aged man, and 4 young men. Chuli's gaze slowly swept past each of them, as if he wanted to see through their hearts. After looking at everyone, he raised his hand and closed fist saluted. "I am Chuli, the centurion of the secret Guardian's Hall. Thank you for your hard work. Welcome back to the house." The 9 of them closed fists saluted and forced a smile without saying a word. They were all smart people. They knew that even if they returned to the secret Guardian's Hall, their lives would not be much different. They would just find a secluded place to live a peaceful life. It would be no different from the mountain villa of the Tempest Temple. Ma Kuin closed fist saluted. "Senior Qin, Senior Feng, Senior Zheng, Senior Ouyang. Ma Kuin greets the 4 of you." "Young Ma? Ma Kuin?" A tall and dignified old man hesitated. "Senior Qin, I am Young Ma." Ma Kuin smiled. "Do you still remember me?" "Haha. I am old and my memory is getting worse." I almost couldn't remember just now. Young Ma, you haven't changed at all. I can still recognize you. Qin Jin laughed. Not bad, not bad. Are you a centurion now? No, I am the second in command. Ma Kuan smiled and pointed at Chu Li. This is the centurion. Chu Li closed fist saluted. Senior Qin, you are? Let's talk when we return to the house. All right. Qin Jin smiled and nodded. He turned to look at the 8 people behind him. We never thought that we would be able to return to the house one day. Chu Li smiled. The house has been thinking of a way and finally found an opportunity. This time, we caught someone who cultivates the Azura power technique and brought him to the Tempest Temple to exchange for all of you. Sigh, I really didn't expect this. Qin Jin shook his head emotionally. He looked at Zhou Lingfeng, who was on his horse, and frowned. Feeling Zhou Lingfeng's ferocious aura, he knew that this guy's Azura power technique had reached a high level. He could not be killed. That was why the Tempest Temple was willing to pay a price and release them. Chu Li said, Second in command, Ma, bring them back to see the commander. I have something to say to Fa Yuan. Yes. Ma Kuan closed fist saluted. Chu Li smiled and nodded to everyone. When they left, Chu Li turned to face Fa Yuan. His face darkened. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. Without waiting for Chu Li to make things difficult, he said, Almsgiver Chu, please forgive us. When we first caught them, we crippled their martial arts. If they did not become ordinary people, the temple would not have been able to let them live. Tempest Temple. No wonder that person died of old age. It's because you crippled their martial arts, Chu Li said coldly. Fa Yuan sighed and shook his head. That's the only way. Almsgiver Chu should understand. Of course, Chu Li understood. However, he wanted to find an excuse to make things difficult for them. He wanted them to feel that they had suffered a great loss. What about their martial arts? Chu Li scoffed. Don't tell me that you want me to exchange for a group of ordinary people. No matter how many of them there are, they won't be able to match up to Zhou Lingfeng. Fa Yuan shook his head. I have no choice. Chu Li said, No choice? Fa Yuan, you've become so cunning. Your temple has a spirit pill called the Life Returning Pill. It can help restore martial arts. They can't use it. Fa Yuan shook his head. Their martial arts have just been crippled. Their meridians have not yet stabilized. They can use the Life Returning Pill to restore their cultivation. After so many years, their meridians have long. The Life Returning Pill is useless. You don't have to worry about whether it's useful or not. The Life Returning Pill still has to be given. I have a way to restore them. Chu Li said. Fa Yuan frowned. Almsgiver Chu, it's really useless. Don't waste the pill. He took out a porcelain bottle. There are only 9 of them. If you use one, there will be one less. Our temple doesn't have many of them. The spirit medicine is getting harder to find. I'm afraid it will be extinct soon. I'll use it carefully. Chu Li smiled and took the porcelain bottle. Fa Yuan was quite generous. Without the Life Returning Pill, there was really nothing he could do to restore their martial arts. Fa Yuan shook his head and looked at him helplessly. He knew Chu Li's character. That was why he prepared the Life Returning Pill in advance. Otherwise, there would be complications in the deal. Zhou Lingfeng was very important to the Tempest Temple. It was worth it. Chu Li said, the formula for the Life Returning Pill. Fa Yuan hurriedly shook his head. That's impossible. Chu Li said, nothing is impossible. This isn't the formula for other pills. If the spirit medicine is gone, it's useless for you to keep it. Chapter 547. P.S. Due to the after effects of the explosion, I'm writing slowly. Please forgive me. If that's the case, then forget it. There's still one more bottle. Chu Li did not force it and raised his voice. Fa Yuan gave him another white jade bottle. He said slowly, Almsgiver Chu should know the magical effects of the adversity surpassing pill. Not only can it bring the dead back to life, but it can also prevent one from going astray. It's also very beneficial for cultivation. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and took the white jade bottle. All right, I understand. Ma Kuan and the others slowly approached the town gate. There were not many people at the east gate. At that moment, 4 young men were walking out. These 4 young men walked briskly, and their eyes were bright. One look, and anyone could tell that they were martial arts practitioners. Ma Kuan felt that something was wrong. After all, he had been a secret guardian of the imperial house for many years. He was experienced and had a keen sense of danger. His expression suddenly changed. He turned his head and shouted, "Be careful!" He flew up from his horse and landed in front of Qin Jin, blocking a cold light that was shot at him. Bam! He punched the cold light away. It was a flying blade. Damn it! Ma Kuan punched another flying blade away. The 4 young men shot flying blades at the 9 people. Ma Kuan could only block 2 of the flying blades. He could not do anything about the other 7. They did not have any martial arts to begin with. Seeing the flying blades coming at them, they could not do anything. They could only watch helplessly as the flying blades came at them. "Ah!" Ma Kuan roared. He ignored the flying blades and ran straight at the 4 young men. Ding, 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 ding. In a series of clear sounds, 7 cold lights suddenly appeared and knocked down the flying blades. Chuli appeared in front of them and waved his hand. "Forget it. There's no need to chase after them." "Centurion!" Ma Kuan broke out in a cold sweat and stopped in his tracks. Chuli looked at the 4 young men who had disappeared into the forest and shook his head. Ma Kuan quickly came forward and closed fist saluted. Chuli waved his hand and ignored him. He turned to the 9 people and closed fist saluted. "Senior Qin, you must have been frightened. Let's quickly return to the residence." Ma Kuan secretly gritted his teeth. He did not expect this to happen. He couldn't wait to capture the 4 assassins and interrogate them properly. However, he knew that he shouldn't be entangled with them for too long. It was more important to hurry into the city. Before Ma Kuan came, he did not expect that these 9 people would have their martial arts crippled and needed protection. Otherwise, he would have brought more people with him. Chuli quickly brought everyone into the town and returned to the Secret Guardians Hall. Outside the Secret Guardians Hall, Fu Mengshan and Su Huanda personally stood outside the house as they watched Chu Li and the others approach. Fu Mengshan and Su Huanda had solemn expressions on their faces as they cupped their fists and bowed to the 9 people one by one, then invited them into the residence. Qin Jin and the other 3 were older than Fu Mengshan by more than 20 years. When Fu Mengshan entered the residence, Qin Jin and the others were already old secret guardians. After settling the 9 people down and letting them rest, Chu Li was called into the main hall by Fu Mengshan. "Sigh, I really didn't expect them to be this old." Fu Mengshan shook his head and sighed. Su Huanda said, "It can't be helped. Once one's martial arts is crippled, one will age very quickly." "Old Su, how do you think we should settle them down?" Fu Mengshan frowned and said, "It's a good thing that they're back, but their martial arts have been crippled, so it's no longer suitable for them to work. However, to have them guard the Imperial Mausoleum, that's," he said as he shook his head. Settling these 9 people was indeed a big problem. "Commander, leave it to me." Chu Li said, "May Air Courtyard is in need of manpower. They're all old secret guardians with rich experience, so it's just right for them to bring Dong Chi Fei and the others along. It'll be the best use of them. Leave it to you?" Fu Mengshan smiled and said, "Young Chu, do you know that we haven't even found out if they betrayed us or not?" Chu Li said, "They're all fine." Fu Mengshan looked at Su Huanda. "At the end of the day, it's best to leave it to young Chu. Since we can determine whether they're loyal or not, we can give them more manpower. It's a pity that their martial arts have been crippled. Old Qin and the others were grandmasters before." Chu Li asked. Fu Mengshan said, "Old Qin, Old Feng, Old Zheng, and Old Ouyang are all grandmasters. As for the rest, they're slightly weaker, so I don't dare to send any more grandmasters." Chu Li slowly nodded. "There's no use for grandmasters," Su Huanda said. "You want to restore their martial arts? Even with the life-returning pill from the Tempest Temple, it's useless. Their meridians have already withered, and the life-returning pill can't restore their martial arts." Chu Li said, "I'll think of a way, but let me make this clear. If their martial arts are restored, they'll still belong to the May Air Courtyard. The public house can't simply transfer them." Do you really have a way?" Fu Mengshan said curiously. "All right. If they can be restored, they'll belong to you too. We won't interfere." Although he could not accept it emotionally, the truth was the truth. They had worked hard and performed great deeds. Unfortunately, without martial arts, they became a burden. They were originally a burden, so it was good enough to have a place to settle them. If their martial arts were restored, it would be a good thing. The public house would not take advantage of this. Chu Li's work was the secret guardian's hall's business anyway, so there was no need to compete with him for manpower. Thank you, Commander. Chu Li smiled. Su Wanda's face darkened. He scoffed and said, I heard that they encountered assassins on their way back to town. Is it the Tempest Temple's doing? Chu Li shook his head. I think they're trying to provoke us into fighting the Tempest Temple. Who is it? Su Wanda frowned. Chu Li shook his head. It's not worth investigating. We have countless enemies with the Tempest Temple. That's true, Fu Mengshan said, but it's the first time we've made a deal with the Tempest Temple. Actually, this matter should be thoroughly investigated. There were only a few people who knew about it, but it was leaked. However, Chu Li did not want to investigate, so Fu Mengshan did not plan to force him. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Will anyone say that I'm in cahoots with the Tempest Temple? This is something we allowed. Fu Mengshan waved his hand. You take care of the 9 of them. Sai, they've all contributed too much to the Secret Guardian's Hall. They should be treated well. Chu Li nodded. The sun was setting, and the courtyard was dyed red. The courtyard that Chu Li and the others were in was far better than the previous courtyard. It was so wide that it could be used as a training ground. The courtyard could accommodate 100 people. This was Plum Blossom Courtyard number 2. They called it May Air Courtyard. Ma Kuan brought the 9 people to May Air Courtyard. Dong Qifei and the other 3 came out to welcome them. The Ning brothers looked at one of them excitedly. Ma Kuan smiled. This time, the Ning brothers are all here. Dong Qifei and Yang Zongwen looked at a slightly plump young man among the 9 and smiled. The slightly plump young man stepped forward. Big brother. Second brother. He was slightly shorter and thinner than the other 2. He was also more handsome than the other 2. When they stood together, anyone could tell that they were brothers. Ma Kuan chuckled. This is a joyous occasion. Senior Qin, from today onwards, everyone will be part of May Air Courtyard. Where's Centurion Chu? Qin Jin had a dignified aura. Even without his martial arts, Ma Kuan still felt inferior. Ma Kuan hurriedly smiled. He's talking to the commander. Centurion Chu personally asked the commander to come here. He thinks very highly of all of you. Us old and muddle-headed people can be considered to be freeloaders. The Centurion is really considerate. Qin Jin shook his head. The other 8 people's faces were gloomy. They could guess their endings. Ma Kuan smiled. Senior Qin, don't worry. The Centurion told the commander that he'll help everyone recover their martial arts. Dong Qifei glared at Ma Kuan. Yang Zongwen shook his head helplessly. This Ma Kuan had been restless. He was still causing trouble for the Centurion. How could they recover their martial arts after being crippled for so long? Qin Jin and the others would be overjoyed when they heard the news. Then they would be disappointed and blame the Centurion. Chapter 548. Young Ma, don't try to fool us. Qin Jin waved his hand and smiled. Recover my martial arts? Hee, my martial arts have been crippled for more than 50 years. How can I recover? I'm just an old man who's going to die soon. There's no hope. Ma Kuan smiled. Others might not be able to, but Centurion Chu is a young talent. He often does amazing things. It might not be impossible. Really? Qin Jin frowned. Ma Kuan said, if anyone else said that, I would never believe it. But since Centurion Chu said it, then I believe it. Think about it. Centurion Chu went from a commoner who did not know any martial arts to a grandmaster in less than 2 years. How amazing is that? Looks like we've met a benefactor. Qin Jin smiled. Even so, he still did not believe it. Having lived for almost a lifetime, of course, he saw Dong Qifei and the others' expressions. Then, he looked at Ma Kuan's expression and roughly understood that they were trying to embarrass Centurion Chu. They had just arrived and were all crippled. They did not want to get involved in the battle between the Centurion and the second in command. It would be asking for trouble. It's a pity for young Ning. He pointed at Ning Jiwen and shook his head. But there's no rush. As long as he's back, he can cultivate from the beginning. Ning Jiwen patted his chest and smiled. Old Master Qin, don't worry. I'll definitely cultivate my martial arts back. If you can cultivate it back, us old men will be relieved. Qin Jin smiled. Ma Kuan knew that his thoughts were seen through in front of the shrewd Qin Jin, but he did not mind. He smiled and introduced Dong Chi Fei and the others to them. Everyone found a stone table and sat down. Dong Chi Fei asked them about their experiences. How did they live in the Tempest Temple all these years? Do they suffer? Qin Jin chuckled. Without our martial arts, we're just cripples. The Tempest Temple won't do anything to us. Even if they send us deep into the mountains to farm, we can't run away even if we want to. We can only live our lives honestly. I'm an expert in farming now, but I can't do anything else. Dong Chi Fei asked curiously, Elder Qin, didn't you think of a way to cultivate again? It didn't work. Qin Jin said, in the beginning, I worked hard to cultivate and wanted to escape. Unfortunately, as soon as I cultivated inner force, I would be discovered immediately and crippled again. I could only be an ordinary person. Later on, I gave up. Sigh, these monks are really ruthless. Dong Chi Fei said hatefully. Qin Jin shook his head and said, it would be the same for anyone else. We, the Secret Guardians Hall, would kill any spy we catch. It's considered benevolent of them to let us live. It's not a waste of our duty as monks. As they were talking, Chu Li appeared, so they stood up to greet him. Chu Li glanced at the crowd expressionlessly and said in a deep voice, Dong Chi Fei, Yang Zongwen, Ning Da, Ning Er, help me arrange a place to stay. Elder Qin, let's talk in private. Yes. Everyone dispersed in an uproar. Ma Kuan also left and returned to his house. Chu Li brought Qin Jin to the main hall. A maid gently picked up a teacup and left without a sound. Chu Li picked up the teacup and gestured. Qin Jin also picked up his teacup. The two of them took a sip of tea and slowly put it down. It was so quiet in the house that a pin drop could be heard. Chu Li said, Elder Qin, I didn't ask you to come over from the commander to let you retire. I need to use you. Qin Jin bowed slightly. Centurion, I'm useless. I'm afraid. I'll help you recover your martial arts. You're all elites of the Secret Guardians Hall and are very experienced. You're also grandmasters. You'll be of great help to the May Air courtyard. You don't have to belittle yourself, Chu Li said. Qin Jin smiled bitterly. Yes, Centurion. We'll do our best to help you. Chu Li nodded. There's one more thing you need to understand. I'm not only the Centurion of the Secret Guardians Hall, but I'm also the head chief of the Imperial Residence of King En and the chief of the High Duke's Public House. I'll need your help in some matters. Yes, Qin Jin said. We'll only listen to the Centurion's orders. He said this because he was forced to do so. Although they had suffered a lot for the Secret Guardians Hall, the winner takes all. They did not come back for meritorious service. Compared to those secret guardians who lost their lives, their sufferings were nothing. More importantly, everyone would doubt their loyalty. If that happened, even the commander would not dare to use them. They could only become useless once again, no different from when they were in the Tempest Temple. They could not blame the Secret Guardians Hall. Anyone else would have done the same. Since Chu Li wanted to use them, they had no choice but to be loyal to him. They had been suppressed for so many years, so their hearts were even more intense. Not only did their desire for fame, splendor, and wealth not diminish, it became even stronger. They were not willing to die of old age peacefully. Even if Chu Li's intentions were unpredictable, they had to take a gamble and follow him to the end. Chu Li smiled. All right, Elder Qin, you're a smart man. I'll recover your martial arts now. He took out a box of needles from his sleeve as he said this. Before Qin Jin could say anything, he had already pierced the needles into his body and fixed him in place. After the acupuncture, Chu Li picked up a book and slowly flipped through it. An hour later, Chu Li put down the book and took out a porcelain bottle. He poured out a snow-white pill and stuffed it into Qin Jin's mouth. Qin Jin's eyes widened. He felt his whole body itch as if thousands of ants were crawling in his body. Chu Li suddenly retracted his hand, and dozens of needles flew back into the box. Bang! Qin Jin's clothes inflated like an inflated ball. His hair danced in the air. Qin Jin was overjoyed and could not help but laugh. His laughter shook the house, and dust fell. The power that he yearned for had returned to him. He had become a grandmaster again. This was like a dream. He did not even dare to think about it. Chu Li sat firmly on the chair and smiled. Congratulations. Qin Jin stopped laughing and closed fists saluted. Thank you, Centurion. Chu Li waved his hand. It's a fair deal. No need to thank me. Let the next one in. Yes, Qin Jin said. He was in awe of the calm and indifferent young man in front of him. This kind of skill was not something that others could have. He was so young, but his cultivation level was unfathomable. He was truly a god's favored one. He was worthy of his loyalty. Chu Li smiled as he watched Qin Jin leave. With this group of experienced masters, his strength was more adequate. It would be more convenient for him to do things in the future. He did not have to do everything himself. Later that night, before Chu Li left the May Air courtyard, all 9 of them had recovered their martial arts. This night was normal for others, but it was a day of rebirth for them. When Chu Li returned to the imperial residence of King and Chief, Zhu quickly ran out to welcome him. He handed over an invitation with both hands. Head Chief, there's an invitation for you. Chu Li took it. There aren't any guests today, right? Miss Lu came to look for the princess, Chief Zhu said. Chu Li paused for a moment and nodded. He opened the invitation and saw that it was sent by Han Fei. He wanted to congratulate him on his housewarming and taking in a concubine. He wanted to take Bai Lan into his room. Chapter 549. P.S. Due to the after effects of the outbreak, I'm writing as slow as a tortoise today. I'll update late. Everyone, please forgive me. The next update will also be late. Let's save it for tonight and read it together. When Chu Li returned to Tianshu courtyard, Xiao Shi was admiring the moonlight in the courtyard. Seeing him enter, Xiao Shi turned her head and glanced at him, her eyes sparkling. You're always in a hurry. What are you doing? About the secret guardian's hall, Chu Li said. Xiao Shi pointed at the opposite side of the stone table. Chu Li sat down and placed the invitation on the stone table. Xiao Shi took it and glanced at it. She glanced at her alluring red lips. Yang Su brought the jade pot and jade cup over and filled it for him. Chu Li thanked him with a smile and sighed. It's finally over. Why are you so concerned about the secret guardian's hall? Xiao Shi asked in confusion. It's not like it's your business. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. I'll be able to use it in the future. Xiao Shi frowned. King An's imperial residence doesn't seem to be related to the secret guardian's hall, right? A man without foresight is bound to have immediate worries. Chu Li sighed. Has the lady thought about what she would do if King An is no longer around? It's good that he's not here anymore. Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li shook his head and said, I'm afraid it won't be easy back then. Xiao Shi furrowed her brows and pondered. She understood what Chu Li meant. King An was indeed hateful. But once King An was gone, the imperial residence of King An would no longer live up to its name. An imperial residence of King An with King An and an imperial residence of King An without King An would be completely different. Chu Li said, we have to make them think twice before they try to bully us. What's the point of being on a mission from the secret guardian's hall? Xiao Shi said. Chu Li smiled. I've become a centurion now, so I finally have some real power. Even if I can't protect the imperial residence, I can still receive news in advance. What he said wasn't entirely true. In fact, there was a hidden layer of intention, but because it was too far away, it really wasn't enough for outsiders to know. There were 2 paths to becoming an Empyrean god, and he couldn't be sure which one he would succeed in. He could only prepare for both paths at the same time, so he had to quietly make arrangements, prepare, and slowly work towards that direction. Xiao Shi chuckled. Aren't you tired of thinking so far ahead? Chu Li burst into laughter and glanced at her. All right, I know you're doing this for my own good. Xiao Shi waved her hand, but there's really no need to rush. Even if King An isn't here, there's still Lung Qing, Lung Xiao, and the others. They're King An's children. The imperial residence of King An is still the imperial residence of King, and Chu Li smiled and said no more. Xiao Shi tossed the invitation back onto the table. You're going to the verdant cloud brothel again? Not this time. Chu Li smiled. I'm going to Brother Han's residence. Seosher scoffed and shook her head. The next morning, when Chu Li arrived at the secret guardian's hall, he saw that the martial arts field in the middle of Mayer Courtyard was bustling with activity. A total of 14 people were practicing in full swing. Qin Jin and the others seemed to have become 20 years younger. Their gazes were sharp and they were in high spirits. They were unable to control themselves. They had nowhere to use their energy, so they wanted to vent it out. Bam, 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 bam. Qin Jin and Feng Jing were engaged in a brawl. Their fists were overflowing and the dull thuds were incessant. However, the two of them were flushed with excitement. The others also found their own people to spar with. There were a total of 7 pairs. They had not sparred with anyone for decades. They needed to learn from each other to familiarize themselves with the feeling of fighting. This was to prevent them from losing their lives because they were unfamiliar with their martial arts. Ma Kuan was sparring with Zhu Wenxin. Zhu Wenxin was a dignified, valiant, middle-aged man. He spoke little. His martial arts was fierce and overbearing. He was evenly matched with Ma Kuan. Ma Kuan suddenly called out, "Hold on." Zhu Wenxin took a step back. His face was filled with excitement. The feeling of using martial arts again was amazing. His blood was boiling, and he could not control himself. He wanted to keep fighting. Ma Kuan raised his voice. "Centurion, why don't you join in the fun?" Chu Li looked at him and said lightly, "I won't join in the fun." "Don't." Ma Kuan quickly said, "Everyone is playing. Let's join in the fun." Everyone knew that Ma Kuan was provoking him again. They secretly shook their heads. It seemed that the Centurion and the second in command still had to fight for a while. Ma Kuan was not convinced. The Centurion did not seem to be in a hurry to suppress him. It looked like he was indulging him. Dong Qifei and the others were secretly worried. Was he looking for a chance to kill second in command Ma? Ma Kuan saw that Chu Li did not move. He smiled. "Centurion, everyone knows that your martial arts is outstanding. You're a genius, but we've never had the chance to experience it. Why don't you show us what you've got? It'll broaden our horizons." Dong Qifei's eyes widened in excitement. He could not wait for Chu Li to agree. He was purely curious to see how powerful the Centurion was. Chu Li hesitated for a moment. He nodded. "That's fine too. It's hard to refuse your kindness. Second in command, Ma. Shall we have a few moves?" "Sure." "Yes." Ma Kuan quickly agreed. Chu Li smiled. "How about this? We'll limit it to 10 moves. We'll stop after 10 moves. That way, we won't have to fight endlessly." "All right, 10 moves." Ma Kuan laughed. He was secretly excited. He had finally found a chance to embarrass Chu Li. His martial arts was not as good as the second in command Ma Kuan's. What was there to be arrogant about? This world was still determined by martial arts. Chu Li slowly walked to the center of the field. Everyone took a few steps back. They made way and looked at the two of them standing opposite each other. "Centurion, I'm sorry." Ma Kuan growled and threw a punch. The heavenly demonic orb fell to his precordium. Suddenly, a surge of energy surged around him. It was endless. It was as if he could break the sky with one punch. Chu Li faced Ma Kuan's fist force head-on. Bam! The fist force hit his body. Chu Li did not lose his momentum. His fist hit Ma Kuan. Bam! Ma Kuan was thrown out like a rock. He flew for more than 10 meters and crashed into the courtyard door. There was a loud noise. The courtyard door almost broke. Chu Li lightly shook his white robe. He acted as if nothing had happened. The heavenly demonic orb returned to his precordium. Ma Kuan spat out a mouthful of blood. He crawled up with a gloomy face. "Did I hit you too hard?" Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "How about another punch?" "No need." Ma Kuan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He scoffed. "Centurion, you really have good martial arts. I'm impressed." Chu Li smiled. "Second in command, Ma. Let's spar again when we have the chance. We didn't get to enjoy ourselves." Ma Kuan gritted his teeth and cursed in his heart. Chu Li was obviously calling him useless. He did not get to enjoy himself because he did not get to enjoy himself. Qin Jin praised, as expected of the Centurion. "Good martial arts." The rest of the people praised as well. They were now loyal to the centurion, not the second in command. They did not have to listen to him. Chuli smiled and waved his hand. I went a little unfairly. The second in command was not prepared. I ambushed him. It's nothing. Makoin forced a smile. He could say that he wanted to ambush him. His palm strike seemed light, but it contained all of his inner energy. However, when his fist landed on Chu Li's body, Chu Li did not seem to be injured at all. It was like he was scratching an itch. It was really scary. He was afraid and did not dare to provoke Chu Li anymore. If Chu Li really wanted to continue the spar, and he took another 2 punches, he might be crippled. He had to be careful. Chu Li asked, second in command, "Are we really not going to spar anymore?" "There's really no need." Ma Cohen forced a smile. Chu Li nodded. "All right, everyone stop practicing. Let's investigate a new case. The Autumn Wind Camp Extermination Case." Upon hearing about the case, Yang Zowen asked, "Centurion, was it not done by Zhou Lingfeng?" Chu Li shook his head. "There's something fishy about this case. You guys investigate it carefully. I'll go back first." Chapter 550. A bright moon hung in the sky. Han Fei's residence was brightly lit. In the main hall, Chu Li and Han Fei sat at a round table made of purple wood. The table was huge and could accommodate more than 10 people. It was very spacious for 2 people. The silver cups shone under the light. Han Fei was tipsy and in high spirits. Bai Lan was wearing a dark green gown that covered her graceful figure. She looked more elegant and less charming, as if she was a different person. She held the silver pot and poured wine for the 2. She pursed her lips and smiled without interrupting. "Brother Chu, do you have any feelings for Miss Yuqing?" Han Fei looked at him with a smile and shook his head. "I really don't believe that any man can reject her." Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "Luckily you didn't ask her to come. If she came, I would leave after a while." "Why?" Han Fei was displeased. "Your way of thinking is weird. She's such a beautiful lady and gentle as water. You're not moved at all. Instead, you avoid her like a snake or a scorpion. Is it because of her identity?" Chu Li looked at Bai Lan. Bai Lan forced a smile. Chu Li laughed. "It's because of her identity." Sigh. Han Fei pointed at him, picked up the silver cup, and drank it in one gulp. "Brother Chu, when did you become so well-behaved? I remember that you were a distinguished guest in the New Moon brothel, and the ladies liked you very much." Chu Li waved his hand and smiled. "Do you know Miss Yuqing's identity?" "What identity?" Han Fei smiled. "Don't tell me she's a traitor." Chu Li smiled. "Not really." Han Fei sat up straight, his eyes flashing. "It can't be? She really has another identity?" Bai Lan sighed in relief and looked at Chu Li gratefully. She initially thought that Chu Li disliked Sister Yuqing's identity as a lady from the Verdant Cloud brothel. She was relieved that it was another identity. She filled the silver cups for Han Fei and Chu Li again. Han Fei took the opportunity to pick it up and took a sip. Chu Li said, "A disciple of the Amethyst Mountain." Puffed. Han Fei spat out the wine in his mouth and started coughing. Bai Lan put down the silver pot and tapped his back. Han Fei continued to let her serve him, but he glared at Chu Li. "Brother Chu, don't joke around." No matter what, he could not believe that a disciple of the Amethyst Mountain had become a lady of the Verdant Cloud brothel. This was like a princess becoming a beggar. It was unbelievable. The difference in status was too great. Chu Li said faintly, "Otherwise, why would I avoid such a beautiful lady? I thought it was your Ji dynasty's #1 beauty," Han Fei said with a smile. Chu Li glared at him. Han Fei said, "No one will believe your words. A disciple of the Amethyst Mountain was practically unattainable. How could she become a lady in the Verdant Cloud brothel? Right, Bai Lan?" Bai Lan nodded lightly. "Chief Chu, are you mistaken? Sister Yuqing doesn't know martial arts. If I couldn't hide it from you, why would I still be in the Verdant Cloud brothel?" Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Sigh. Han Fei paused for a moment and finally accepted it. "Yes, she can hide it from us, but she can't hide it from you, as secret guardian of the Imperial House. No wonder you're in this line of work, to be able to find out about this. You're really hard-hearted, seeing such a beautiful lady and still suspecting her." Chuli smiled. He could not possibly say that it was not the secret guardian of the imperial house who found out, but he himself did, right? He had always underestimated the Amethyst Mountain. The disciples of the Amethyst Mountain also had martial arts that concealed their cultivation level, which was not inferior to the Holy Church of Light. In fact, it should be obvious that the martial arts of the Amethyst Mountain were good at assassination. How could they not have such antique martial arts that concealed their cultivation level? If that's the case, she approached you with ill intentions? Han Fei took another sip of wine to suppress his shock. Chuli said, "Who knows? Sometimes it's hard to tell if she's a friend or foe. One moment she's a friend, the next moment she's an enemy, the next moment she might become a friend." Lu Yurong was like that, and so was Fa Yuan. Your words give me goosebumps, as if we'll become enemies. Han Fei waved his hand and said, "Then what are you going to do, just avoid her?" "I'll avoid her for now," Chuli said. "She doesn't know that I've seen through her." "Who knows?" Han Fei shook his head and said, "I'm completely in the dark. So it's better to be careful," Chuli said with a smile. "The waters of the fairies' capital are too deep. You don't know who can give you a fatal blow. You're lucky that the person you met was Miss Bailan. If it was Miss Xueqing, wouldn't killing you be a piece of cake?" Han Fei laughed and said, "Don't scare me." Bailan said, "I really couldn't tell. Sister Yuqing has a great reputation, but her standards are very high. She doesn't usually meet people." Sigh. Amethyst Mountain. Han Fei shook his head again. Although he was also a grandmaster, he still looked up to the Amethyst Mountain. A sect like the Amethyst Mountain had countless grandmasters. Someone like him was not worth mentioning in front of the Amethyst Mountain. Chuli said, "I have a deep grudge with the Amethyst Mountain. It's better to avoid them. Come, let's drink." "Drink." Han Fei raised his cup and drained it in one gulp. When Chuli returned to his courtyard, it was already late at night. The surroundings were asleep. The moon was especially bright. Tianshu courtyard was already asleep. Co Shi was in a deep sleep. The courtyard beside Co Shi was guarded by Zhu Tianhua and a few others, but they did not notice that there was someone sitting in his courtyard, dressed in white like snow, her body like white jade. It was Lu Yurong. Lu Yurong sat quietly by the stone table, deep in thought. Chuli suddenly sat opposite her. Lu Yurong looked up and glanced at him. Her eyes glimmered. She said lightly, "I have something to tell you." "You don't come without a reason," Chuli said. "Have you heard of the cloud-slashing ancestor?" Lu Yurong said. Chuli thought about it, then shook his head. Lu Yurong said, "A legendary character from 500 years ago, a little similar to you, in just a few years, an ordinary person who knew nothing about martial arts became a grandmaster. He had exceptional talent, but he also had exceptional knowledge." "I'm not that legendary." Chuli shook his head and smiled. Lu Yurong glared at him. Chuli smiled. "All right, what's next?" Lu Yurong scoffed. Before the cloud-slashing ancestor died, he left behind a cloud-slashing treasure manual, which recorded all his knowledge. Cloud-slashing treasure manual. Chuli shook his head. He had never heard of it. Lu Yurong said, "It said that this cloud-slashing treasure manual recorded the martial arts that the cloud-slashing ancestor obtained by chance. It's a set of martial arts that surpasses the 4 major sects, or else he wouldn't have such achievements." "You believe that?" Chuli smiled. Lu Yurong said lightly, "It might not be fake." Chuli raised his eyebrows. "Could it be that someone cultivated it according to the secret manual?" Lu Yurong nodded slowly, then sighed. 300 years ago, someone obtained this secret manual, cultivated the swordsmanship, and dominated the world. That person was the famous cloud-slashing swordsman. Unfortunately, this secret manual disappeared along with him. Cloud-slashing swordsman. Chuli pondered, then nodded slowly. He had heard of it before. Chapter 551. P.S. Update complete. I've heard of this cloud-slashing swordsman. It's said that he has never been defeated, Chuli muttered. Although he retired quickly, his swordsmanship is indeed outstanding. After the cloud-slashing swordsman debuted, he challenged all the masters of swordsmanship in the world. He became famous by stepping on others' reputations and offended too many people. Lu Yurong shook her head. So no one knows where he retired, and the cloud-slashing treasure manual was destroyed along with him. It's appeared again now? Chuli frowned. Someone got it? Yes. Lu Yurong nodded. Someone got the cloud-slashing treasure manual. It can't be. Chuli smiled. Who would let others know that they got it? Sometimes it's a coincidence. It doesn't mean that others won't know even if you don't want them to. Lu Yurong shook her head, but no one knows who got it. Chuli muttered, it's just a rumor. Yes. Lu Yurong nodded. It's just a rumor. If there was actual news, it would have shocked the world. The cloud-slashing treasure manual is a great temptation to everyone. Think about it. To enter the Grandmaster's boundary in just a few years, and without the surpassing state. How amazing is that? Who could keep their composure? Chuli stood up and muttered with his hands behind his back. Lu Yurong said, Are you tempted? Chuli smiled and looked at her. Do you want it too? Lu Yurong smiled. Who wouldn't want it? How about we work together? Work together, Chuli said. We'll read the manual together? Yes. Lu Yurong nodded. Chuli smiled. Would you be so kind? He knew that Lu Yurong had always wanted to surpass him. The cloud-slashing treasure manual was an opportunity. If he could really get it, even if he could not change the martial arts in the manual, he could still use it as a reference and improve himself. I'm wondering if there's anything strange about this. Chuli paced with his hands behind his back. The moonlight was like water, and the surroundings were cool. Lu Yurong pursed her lips and smiled. At least you're not out of your mind. You think it's strange, too? Chuli asked. Lu Yurong said, I don't know if it's a trap, but I feel that once the secret manual is out, the world will be shaken. It's a good opportunity to take the risk. Great minds think alike. Chuli smiled. Lu Yurong scoffed. You're now a secret guardian of the imperial house, and you've even become a centurion. She was very satisfied with Chuli's reaction. He was worthy to be her opponent. If it were anyone else, they would have wanted to snatch the cloud-slashing treasure manual impatiently the moment they heard about it. As the saying went, greed blinded one's mind. Once one was driven by this thought, one would be at a disadvantage. One's horizons determined one's knowledge and wisdom. If one's state of mind was not strong enough, one's wisdom would be limited. Chuli was able to jump out immediately and not be affected by the secret manual. Instead, he pondered over the key points and felt that something was amiss. He was indeed extraordinarily intelligent. It was no wonder that he could always surpass Meng Qi. Meng Qi had only come up with this idea after a night of contemplation. Chuli chuckled. You also contributed to this, centurion. Lu Yurong rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. You should investigate this matter properly. But let's make this clear. If this secret manual really appears, we'll snatch it and read it together. No problem, I promise you, Chuli smiled. You're more well-informed than I am. Why do I need to investigate? Lu Yurong said, I got the news by chance. In terms of a number of spies, the secret guardians of the imperial house have the advantage. You're not allowed to keep it for yourself. If there's news, I'll inform you. We'll work together, Chuli said. I keep feeling that something's wrong. Could it be that someone is manipulating things? Even if they knew it was a trap, there would still be countless people who would step into it. This is your style, Lu Yurong said. Chuli's actions were always overt. Even if one knew it was his plan, one could only brace himself and move forward. There was no other choice. Chuli smiled and shook his head. If it was him, he could really set up such a trap. Was it a trap set up by someone, or did the secret manual really appear? Lu Yurong said, I heard that King has a son. Chuli smiled. Even King Jing knows about it. I didn't expect King to be so lucky. He's actually a disciple of the Titanium Temple. What a blessing from the heavens. Lu Yurong frowned. Chuli said, he's cultivating in the Titanium Temple. One day, he'll leave the temple. Lu Yurong sized him up. Aren't you worried? Worried about what? Chuli smiled. Lu Yurong said, you're pressuring King to the point where he can't even breathe. But once King An's son returns, with the power of a disciple of the Titanium Temple, you won't be able to suppress him anymore. Chuli smiled and nodded. Lu Yurong frowned and looked at him. Indeed, he was not worried at all. It was strange. What does King Jing mean? Chuli smiled. You're a little uneasy, aren't you? Not to mention that he's a disciple of the Titanium Temple. Even if he can really cultivate divine powers and cultivate the 10 lifetimes of Buddhahood, King Jing has nothing to fear. Lu Yurong scoffed. Chuli smiled. You don't mean it. Lu Yurong scoffed. This little monk has a good temperament, right? From Chu Li's calmness, she deduced that this little monk was a good person. Otherwise, he would not have reacted like this. King Jing thinks too much. Chu Li smiled. It's not too late to talk about it after King N's martial arts recovers. Lu Yurong said, if King N becomes the emperor, you won't be able to live. Chu Li said, that's true. Then you're not anxious at all. Lu Yurong frowned. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Isn't it too early to talk about this? What are you hiding from me? Lu Yurong scoffed. Chu Li was definitely a person who thought far ahead. Yet he was so indifferent. It was obvious that he had something that she did not know. He was certain that King N would not become the emperor. It's late. I won't be seeing you off. Chu Li fist saluted. Lu Yurong rolled her eyes at him and left in a fluttering white robe. Chu Li looked at the protectors around him and shook his head. Although Lu Yurong's light body technique was amazing, their alertness was poor. Chu Li arrived at the May Air courtyard of the Secret Guardians Hall and immediately called Qin Jin in. Qin Jin and the others were cultivating in the martial arts field. They were cultivating with greater vigor than the younger people. However, Ma Kuan was nowhere to be seen. It was obvious that he was hiding at home to recuperate. Elder Qin, have you heard of the Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual? Chu Li asked. Qin Jin entered Chu Li's house and wiped the sweat off his forehead. Just as he was about to sit down, he was stunned. The Cloud-Slashing Swordsman is known as the world's #1 swordsman. Centurion, you know about the Cloud-Slashing Treasure Manual too? Chu Li said, I heard news that the Cloud-Slashing Treasure Manual has appeared in the martial arts world again. It has appeared again. Qin Jin sighed. It seems that another top-notch master will appear. Is there this secret manual in the Imperial House's secret storage? Chu Li asked. Qin Jin shook his head. The Imperial House did not get it. Even the 4 major sects are looking for it. I suspect that someone is playing tricks, Chu Li said with a frown. Qin Jin said, if it really is the Cloud-Slashing Treasure Manual, I'm afraid that everyone would want it. Even the commander and the others want it too. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Qin Jin said, it is said that the Cloud-Slashing Treasure Manual is related to the Enlightened Mastery's boundary. Chapter 552. Heavenly God Realm. This was his Achilles heel. Just a touch was enough to hit him. All of his hard work was for the sake of reaching the Heavenly God Realm. Now that he heard that this Cloud-Slashing Treasure Manual actually involved the great mystery of the Heaven God Realm, he was instantly tempted and his heartbeat quickened. Then, he shook his head and regained his rationality. If that was the case, the Cloud-Slashing Ancestor would have become a heavenly god, and the Cloud-Slashing Swordsman would also be a heavenly god. If he was a heavenly god, why would he need to live in seclusion? No one would dare to provoke him even if he didn't live in seclusion. As such, even if the great mysteries of the Heavenly God Realm were truly profound mysteries, they would most likely be useless in becoming a heavenly god. What he needed to do was to walk his own path and not be distracted by other things. As for other people's schemes, and whether there were outsiders manipulating them, he didn't care that much. This was something that the emperor should worry about. He only needed to take care of himself. Thinking of this, he regained his composure and smiled. Seems like it is indeed a good thing. Is Elder Qin interested? Qin Jin waved his hand and chuckled. I'm just a bag of old bones. So what if I obtain the secret manual? Could it be that I'll abandon my current mental cultivation method and change to another mental cultivation method? Isn't that just asking for trouble? Chu Li smiled. Elder Qin's words are not entirely true. As the saying goes, the older one gets, the more unyielding they are. Moreover, it involved the celestial deity realm. If he could really reach the celestial deity realm, his lifespan would increase greatly. How could Qin Jin not be tempted? Qin Jin said helplessly, Yes, I can't hide it from you, Centurion. However, I'm very satisfied. Being able to regain my martial arts and return to the Secret Guardian's Hall has been a life I've wanted to live for the past few decades. As for the Cloud slashing treasure manual, of course, I want to get my hands on it, but I know my own capabilities. It's impossible. Chuli said, I'm guessing that once the Cloud slashing treasure manual is revealed, there won't be any peace. Find more people to investigate this matter. Can your original spies still be used? Qin nodded. Most of the old guys are not dead yet. His kung fu was crippled, but he did not die. Originally, those spies' kung fu was not weak, so it was not easy for them to die. Other than those who died accidentally, most of them were still alive and healthy. We need to make a net by ourselves, Chuli said. Qin said slowly, I understand. If one wanted to make a contribution in the Secret Guardian's Hall, he would need to have his own personal network of relationships and information network. Then, he would have to combine it with the Secret Guardian's Hall's common information network in order to be ahead of the others. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to stand out and make a great contribution just by relying on the information within the hall. Chuli had already become a centurion at such a young age, so, of course, he had to maintain his momentum. Otherwise, he would be stepped on by those who came after him. Qin was unwilling to accept this. He understood what Chuli needed and had already contacted him in secret. Chuli said, the High Duke's Public House and the Jiangchuan Alliance. Gather all their information together. I'll introduce them to you in 2 days. Yes, Qin said in a low voice. Chuli waved his hand. Gather more information about the Cloud slashing treasure manual and see if you can join in the fun. Yes, Qin did not agree to wade into these muddy waters. The waters were too deep, and it was easy to lose soldiers and generals. However, he saw that the centurion was young and impetuous. He might not listen to him, so it was better to speak less. He watched as Qin left. Yang Zongwen's voice came from outside. Centurion, come in. Chuli put down the teacup. Yang Zongwen came in and closed fist saluted. I've investigated the case of the Autumn Wind Camp. Chuli raised his eyebrows. It wasn't done by Zhou Lingfeng, was it? It wasn't Zhou Lingfeng. It didn't seem to be done by one person. It was done by a certain faction. It could be a grudge between factions. Yang Zongwen shook his head. It doesn't make sense to destroy the entire camp. Chuli shook his head. The Autumn Wind Camp is not a big camp. The enemy can't be that strong. Yes, Yang Zongwen said. According to the records, some of their fatal injuries were caused by knives, some by swords, and some by palm force and fist force. The culprit's martial arts were uneven. It should be a faction. Chuli frowned. Faction? This has already involved an innate master, so it's under the public house's jurisdiction, Yang Zongwen said. It's within the boundaries of the Ji Public House. The Secret Guardian's Hall can't intervene. Chuli muttered, the Jiren Public House is really troublesome. The Ji Public House was located on Jiren Road. It was adjacent to the Ren Public House. The relationship between the Ji Public House and the Imperial Court had always been delicate. When it came to such a matter, the Imperial Court could not simply intervene. Otherwise, it would be violating the ancestral system. Even if the Ji Public House crippled the person, the Imperial Court would not be able to say anything. Yang Zongwen said, our people can't go there to take a look. It's already under the control of the Ji Public House. Chuli said, it's 1,000 miles away from here, right? Yes, Yang Zongwen nodded. I'll go take a look myself, Chuli said. Yang Zongwen said, then the centurion must be careful. The Ji Public House is heavily guarded. No one is allowed to go near. Moreover, the Ji Public House is strong. They're used to being overbearing. I'll go alone. You guys continue to keep an eye on this matter, Chuli said. Yes, Yang Zongwen said. He was confident in the centurion's light body technique. If he went alone, no one would be able to catch up to him. A bright moon hung high in the sky. The night was dark. Everything was quiet. Chuli stood in front of a desolate mountain stronghold. The stronghold had only been destroyed a few days ago, but it felt like it had been in ruins for hundreds of years. There were burn marks everywhere. The murderer had set a fire after destroying the stronghold. After all, it was a mountain fire. It was impossible to burn everything completely. The corpses were still there, which was why this tragedy was discovered, and the Imperial Court sent people over to investigate. How could the Secret Guardians Hall not have received news of such a big case? The Secret Guardians Hall had two responsibilities. One was to intervene when the Imperial Court was unable to solve the case. The other was to investigate the performance of the Imperial Court officials in the case, and if there were any corrupt people, they would be caught. Unfortunately, once it was confirmed that there was an innate master, the case would be immediately transferred to the G Public House. The Imperial Court could only look at it. They had no right to dispose of it, and the Secret Guardians Hall could not intervene. The night was like water. Under the observation of Chu Li's omniscient mirror, everything within a 5-mile radius could not be hidden. The stronghold was empty. Everything that could provide clues had been taken away. Chu Li's figure flashed. He appeared under a large rock and found the first half of a broken knife at the bottom of the rock. Then he pressed lightly. His palm energy shook out a short sword that could cut iron like mud. Then his figure flashed continuously. Here and there he found a bunch of things. These were all hidden in the soil, on trees, or in the corner of the wall. It was easy to find, but also easy to ignore. There were people from the G Public House guarding the surroundings, but they did not care. After all, it was almost impossible for anyone to come to such a dangerous place. Chu Li took a bunch of things, appeared in a forest far away, and began to use the all-seeing divine power. One by one, he was picked up and put down. He tried his best to maintain the all-seeing divine power. He was a little tired and let out a sigh of relief. More than 20 small things. In the end, there was only one thing left in his hand. It was the first half of the broken knife. He thought for a while, then smiled. The owner of this broken knife was still alive. It was very likely that he was one of the murderers. Chapter 553. P.S. I'm on my limit, gritting my teeth, and writing very slowly. Please forgive me. I may not be able to update in time, but I'll try my best to complete 6 chapters. Chu Li looked at the remnants and felt a little melancholy. Life was so weak, it was not easy to live, but easy to die. The owners of these little things were still lively just a few days ago. Everyone had their own dreams and probably wanted to conquer the world, but now they were corpses. He shook his head, put down the short sword, and picked up the broken knife again. This knife was probably cut by the short sword, and the owner of the broken knife was still alive. It was very likely that he was the murderer, or was he lucky to have survived? The biggest possibility was that he was the murderer, but which faction was he from? He activated the all-seeing divine power again, and at the same time, he was ready to use God's limbs to find that guy. He suddenly opened his eyes. He had suddenly lost contact, and the owner of the broken knife was also dead. It was really strange when he was in a daze just now. Thinking about this, the heavenly demonic orb above his heart fell, and his body was instantly filled with endless power. His 5 senses improved, and his spirit became stronger and sharper. He used the all-seeing divine power again and disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared in a city, and the sound of killing was everywhere. Under the moonlight, 2 groups of people were fighting, and people fell from time to time. It was tragic and cruel. He stood there for a few breaths. More than 20 people had fallen, and the remaining people were still fighting. Screams and curses were endless, and the curses were filled with despair and madness. Chu Li frowned and glanced at a middle-aged man in the corner. It was the owner of the knife, and he was already dead. He stood in the shadows and looked around. There were 4 innate masters, and the rest were acquired masters. In his eyes, they were not worth mentioning, but their martial arts were more than enough to kill people, and they fell one by one. One side had 10 people, and the other side had 112 people. The 10 people were like hungry wolves, and the 112 people were like sheep. They had almost no power to resist, and could only fight in vain. They could not stop falling one by one. Their eyes were bloodshot, and even if they could not win, they wanted to perish together. Unfortunately, they were all acquired masters, and they were too far behind their opponents. They could not even perish together, and could only be killed one by one in vain. Chu Li was not in a hurry to intervene, and stood at the side to find the person in charge. The two middle-aged men were both innate experts. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand in the battle. "You with the surname Ling, don't be too proud," a short and fat middle-aged master said in a deep voice. "Even if you kill us, it's useless." Another handsome middle-aged man sneered and said, "If you don't have that fate, then don't reach out. You think you can snatch it?" The chunky middle-aged man laughed. "To tell you the truth, I destroyed it after reading it. Even if you kill me, you won't get the secret manual." "Huh," the handsome middle-aged man said coldly. "I don't believe that you are willing to destroy it. What's there to be reluctant about? If I can't get it, no one else can." The pudgy middle-aged man laughed and said, "I knew I couldn't hide it from others, and I couldn't protect myself. But in my mind, who would dare to kill me? Humph, if I can't kill you, then the people around you can forget about living." The handsome middle-aged man sneered. "Kill them one by one. Let's see if you can still endure it. Kill, kill, kill." The day I obtained the secret manual, I knew that no one would be able to live. The pudgy middle-aged man laughed maniacally. "If you kill me, no one will be able to get it. This **T secret manual will disappear from this world. Wu Ji, if you hand over the secret manual, I can spare your lives." The handsome middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "I, Ling Haya, am a man of my word. If I don't trust you." Wu Ji sneered. Ling Haya said, "Since you're going to die sooner or later, why not take a gamble? Maybe I'll really keep my word." "In your dreams." Wu Ji curled his lips and said, "You're just toying with me. Ever since the day I obtained the secret manual, I knew that I would die sooner or later. But I'm not willing to die, so I'll bring the secret manual with me to my death." "Ha! Ha! Since you know, then why bother snatching it?" Ling Haya shook his head and said, "If you don't have that fate, you'll die the moment you reach out." "Ling, don't talk about me. You're the same." Wu Ji suddenly jumped onto the roof. "Do you think you have that fate? Everyone knows that how Ransex Ling Haya got the cloud-slashing treasure manual. How Ransex Ling Haya got the cloud-slashing treasure manual. He was an innate master. When he shouted with all his might, his voice traveled more than 2 miles. You're courting death." Ling Haya's expression turned cold as he glared at Wu Ji. "All right, Wu, I'd like to see how stubborn you can be." He turned his head to look. His 10 disciples were far more powerful than the High Ridge Association. If it was not for the fact that the High Ridge Association had an innate master, the battle would have ended long ago. Wu Ji's shout was troublesome. There should be many people who knew about it, so it would take some effort. Wu Ji laughed and said, "Ling, if I'm not having a good time, don't even think about having a good time. You're courting death." Ling Haya was so angry that he laughed. His body suddenly sped up and swept past Wu Ji like a wisp of smoke. Wu Ji wanted to dodge, but was powerless. He could only watch helplessly as a palm hit his chest. He could not help but fly up. Bam! Wu Ji landed on the ground. His entire body was in pain. Wah! He spat out a mouthful of blood, but he felt much better. Ling Haya landed next to him and quickly sealed a few of his acupuncture points with the tip of his toe. He clapped his hands, his face pale. He had used a secret skill just now, so the blood in his body was surging. He was not much better off than Wu Ji. After he sealed Wu Ji's acupuncture points, he shot to the other side to deal with the innate master with his companions. The innate master was an old man. When he saw that the situation was not good, he turned and ran. Ling Haya signaled his companions to chase after him while he carried Wu Ji into the house. He was prepared to torture him to make him speak. He had to obtain the cloud-slashing treasure manual no matter what. Chuli shook his head and sighed as he watched from the side. Greed was like this. It often cost one his life. Wu Ji was like this, and so were his subordinates. They had destroyed the Autumn Wind Camp, but in the end, they were destroyed by the Hao Ran faction. It was a cycle of life and death. It was really karma. He could imagine that the Hao Ran faction was going to be in trouble. He glided to a bedroom in the house and moved the bed. He pulled out a brick from the corner of the wall and saw a thin book wrapped in oil paper hidden inside. He did not expect that the cloud-slashing treasure manual would be so easy to obtain. Wu Ji said that he had destroyed it to protect himself. He really could not bear to destroy it. Chu Li opened the oil paper. Inside was a yellowed silk book. There were only a dozen pages, and the words Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual were written in bold calligraphy. It was imposing. He opened it slowly and read page by page. The first 3 pages were a set of strange heart techniques. The last 12 pages were a set of sword techniques. Other than that, there was nothing else. It was hard to believe that this was the famous Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual. This set of heart techniques was a little strange. He could not tell. As for the set of sword techniques at the back, it was also a little strange. Chu Li frowned and pondered. In the end, he shook his head and kept the secret manual in his bosom. He placed a brick inside and moved the bed back. Everything returned to its original state. Then, he disappeared in a flash. No one knew that he had appeared. He returned to the imperial residence of King, and in a flash. The imperial residence of King, and was already in a deep sleep. He sat in the courtyard under the moonlight. He lowered his head and opened the Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual again. He frowned. Chapter 554. He felt that something was not right. This was not because he had obtained it too easily, but because this martial art gave him a strange feeling. It did not have a subtle, profound, or grand feeling. There was a strange and inexplicable aura to it. He believed in his feelings because of the omniscient mirror. His intuition was much sharper than the average person's. He did not cultivate this secret manual hastily. He kept staring at it, trying to figure out the truth. With the omniscient mirror, he could see every detail of the small silk book. He could even see inside and out. He could see every fiber of the book clearly. He could tell whether it was real or fake. This silk book had been around for a long time. It was not a fake one. After a while, he could tell that this silk book had a few hundred years of history. However, the martial art of this ancient book was indeed strange. After studying it for a while, he could only try to cultivate it. His inner energy followed the heart technique, but nothing happened. After one circulation, there was no reaction. He could not find a way to cultivate it. This was a fresh experience for him. Ever since he cultivated the omniscient mirror, his comprehension was amazing. As long as it was a martial art, he could learn it in one go. He could see through the secret with just one look. However, this heart technique was different. It was strange. It cannot be said to be brilliant, but there was something strange about it. It was as if there was a layer of fog covering it. He could not see through it no matter how hard he tried. This made Chu Li curious and cautious. He disappeared into the courtyard. The next moment, he appeared in a courtyard in the imperial residence of King Jing. He coughed. Lu Yurong opened the window, revealing her crystal-clear face. She was cultivating. Her appearance had not faded yet. She looked like a jade statue. Her eyes were cold, but dark and threatening. It was as if she could see through people's hearts. What is it? She frowned and looked at Chu Li with dissatisfaction. It was already late at night, but Chu Li suddenly came to visit. People would think that there was something going on between them. It would only cause gossip. Chu Li said, "Let's talk inside." Lu Yurong frowned and glared at him. She waved her hand. "Come in." She looked at Chu Li's face and knew that it was important. Chu Li pushed the door open and entered. As soon as she stepped into the house, a faint fragrance wafted into her nose, refreshing her mind. The decorations in the house were simple and elegant, matching her temperament. She was wearing a loose nightgown, and her beautiful hair was loose, black, and shiny, as if shrouded in a layer of mist. Her sparkling and translucent face emitted a warm luster, no different from suet white jade. She was dressed so casually, but she suddenly looked more charming and less cold. Her flirtatious temperament seemed to fill the room. Lu Yurong sat on the armchair and looked at him coldly. "You came here in the middle of the night. What can we talk about tomorrow?" Chu Li took out the Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual from his sleeve and passed it to her. "I can't wait until tomorrow." Lu Yurong took it and glanced at it casually. She raised her head and looked at him. Chu Li said, "I've just gotten it. I'm showing it to you as a sign of keeping my promise." Lu Yurong glared at him. He was a man of his word, but he always played tricks and took the opportunity to raise conditions. It was unusual for him to keep his promise so easily. Something unusual must have happened, or else he would not have come so late. She looked down and flipped through it. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. "What do you think?" Chuli said. "It was a lucky hit. I personally went to the Autumn Wind Camp to investigate and track the murderer to the High Hill Association. The High Hill Association destroyed the Autumn Wind Camp because of this secret manual. When I went there, the High Hill Association was being destroyed by the Howran faction, so I took the opportunity to take this secret manual." "The Howran faction," Lu Yurong said. "It's considered a second-rate faction, but they are well-informed. If that's the case, it's your wedding dress." Chuli smiled. "I took advantage of a loophole and was lucky to get this secret manual. The Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual. And it's just such a small one." Lu Yurong shook her head and sighed. "It feels a little unreal." "I feel the same," Chuli said. Lu Yurong frowned and thought about it, then shook her head. Chuli said, "I think this secret manual is fake." "You think so too?" Lu Yurong looked at him. "Don't tell me you gave me a fake one to fool me. I'm not that free," Chuli said impatiently. "If I really don't want to show it to you, just say that I didn't get it. Why would I fool you with this?" Lu Yurong pursed her lips and smiled. She slowly stopped smiling and sighed. "Looks like this Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual is really strange," Chuli said. "Is it really a conspiracy? A trap?" Lu Yurong looked down and flipped through it again. She sighed. "It seems right, but it's not. It's hard to determine if it's fake. Usually, people who get the secret manual will try to cultivate it. If they can't cultivate it, they will doubt themselves, thinking that it's because they don't have enough aptitude and comprehension." Chuli said, "The person who created this hard technique is not an ordinary person. Moreover, this secret manual is hundreds of years old. He really put in a lot of effort. Yes, this is the real thing." Lu Yurong smiled. "Do you think it's really a profound heart technique? Both of us can't see through it. Don't miss it." Chuli smiled. "Then you could try to cultivate it." Lu Yurong laughed. "What if I really cultivate it? What if the person who used this secret manual to fool people didn't think that this secret manual is really a profound heart technique? Is that possible?" "It's very possible." Chuli laughed. "What kind of earth-shattering luck would be needed to encounter such a thing?" Lu Yurong was really imaginative. "All right, then I'll try to cultivate it. I'm free anyway. There's nothing to do recently." Lu Yurong smiled. "Something will happen very soon. It could have been peaceful for a while, but now it seems like there's a storm again. There's never a moment of peace." Chuli said, "How's the strength of the G Public House?" "Autumn Wind Camp is within the borders of the G Public House, right?" Lu Yurong said, "We mind our own business and rarely have any conflicts. If that's the case, their strength is not bad." Chuli nodded. Lu Yurong glared at him, but did not deny it. The strength of the G Public House far surpassed that of the E Public House. Although it was slightly weaker than the Ren Public House, the difference was not too big. So both sides restrained each other for fear of hurting the innocent. The relationship between the High Duke's public houses was like that between countries. It was almost impossible for them to live in peace. There would always be some disputes and friction. Lu Yurong said, "You want to snatch the case from the G Public House? There are innate masters, right?" According to her experience, as long as it involved the case of a faction extermination, there would usually be innate masters. "There are innate masters." Chuli nodded. Lu Yurong's face darkened. "If there are innate masters, then it's the High Duke's Public House's case. What does the Secret Guardian's Hall want to do?" Chuli said, "I'm just afraid that the High Duke's Public House won't be able to control themselves and want to snatch the secret manual." "You underestimate the High Duke's Public House." Lu Yurong laughed coldly. "No matter how bad it is, they will still act according to the law. As for the secret manual, they will at most make a copy. They won't keep it for themselves." Chuli laughed. "Isn't that enough?" "Chuli, you should understand that if the Secret Guardian's Hall meddles, the High Duke's Public House will not be polite," Lu Yurong said coldly. "It's not just you. Even if Fu Mengshan personally intervenes, the G Public House will skin him alive." Chuli said, "I didn't send anyone over. That's for the best." Lu Yurong's expression softened. "But I'm preparing to send someone over," Chuli said. Chapter 555. Chu Li said, "This is not a trivial matter. If the High Duke's public house really doesn't act properly, I'm afraid it will cause chaos in the country. Money moves people's hearts, not to mention this Cloud slashing treasure manual. The Wulin sects in the territory will take advantage of the situation to create chaos. It's better to leave this matter to the High Duke's public house. It's best if the Imperial Court doesn't interfere, especially your secret guardian's hall. The more you mess things up, the worse it gets." Lu Yurong scoffed. Chu Li slowly said, "If this was Chongming Road, I wouldn't want to interfere. Master Xiao Taiying is impartial and straightforward, but this is the Ji public house. That might not be the case." He knew the reputation of the Ji public house. High Duke Ji was not a righteous person. Instead, he valued money very much and acted unscrupulously. It was precisely because of these High Dukes that the courtiers discussed the removal of the High Duke's public house all day long. Let me tell you, the Ji public house has a very close relationship with the Hao Ran faction. Lu Yurong said faintly. Chu Li frowned and asked, "If that's the case, will they protect Hao Ran faction?" "Of course." Lu Yurong scoffed. Chu Li shook his head. "Hao Ran faction won't be able to get away scot-free." The leader of the High Ridge Association shouted that the cloud-slashing treasure manual is in the hands of Hao Ran faction's Ling Haya. Everyone in the city heard it. "I reckon that by tomorrow, everyone will know. Then the Hao Ran faction is really in trouble." Lu Yurong frowned and said, "I'm afraid it'll be the destruction of the faction." The Hao Ran clan was a second-rate clan. If it was a first-rate clan like the Green Hill faction or the Phoenix faction, others would be wary of them even if they obtained the secret manual. If they wanted to snatch the secret manual, they had to work together. Working together was the most troublesome thing, especially when the people of the martial arts world were hot-blooded and free to do whatever they wanted. They would not give in to others. They could only make others give in to them. Only if there was someone with great prestige would it be possible for them to work together. The Hao Ran faction did not have such a deterrent force. Once others received the news, they would pounce on them without any scruples. They would do anything for the sake of the cloud-slashing treasure manual. People die for wealth. Those who kill will always be killed. Chu Li shook his head. He had no sympathy for Ling Haya. Just like how he felt for Wu Ji, he didn't care if they died. After all, none of them were innocent. However, because of this, too many grudges would be stirred up, and the martial arts world would be in chaos. He was a little worried. Once the chaos occurred, it would not only affect one road, it would spread far and wide, and even the Chongming Road would not be spared. If it was not for the Yi public house, he would not have worried about these things that the emperor should worry about. Lu Yurong said, "The key is that Hao Ran faction doesn't have the secret manual. Even if Hao Ran faction is smart enough to hand over the manual, I'm afraid they'll be wiped out in the end." Chu Li furrowed his brows. "If we want to avoid it, we can only join forces with the High Duke's public house." Lu Yurong shook her head and said, "This is a huge taboo. Not only will the Imperial Court not agree to it, but all the sects in the martial arts world will also treat Hao Ran faction with hostility." Chu Li said, "At the end of the day, the Hao Ran faction is doomed." Lu Yurong nodded slowly and indifferently. She did not care at all. Chu Li stood up and paced with his hands behind his back, stepping on the thick and soft carpet and smelling the refreshing fragrance. It was indeed a great enjoyment in this house. However, Chu Li was not in the mood to enjoy this. He pondered and said, "If we want to solve the Hao Ran faction's crisis, we can only ask them to unite with the other factions. Unfortunately, they can't produce the secret manual. Why don't we send the secret manual back?" "How kind of you." Lu Yurong scoffed. Chu Li shook his head. "A storm is brewing." Lu Yurong scoffed and said, "You don't have to worry about these things. You're not the emperor." Chu Li laughed and shook his head. Lu Yurong said, "There's going to be another bloodbath. Many people will fall, and many will rise to become famous masters. This kind of storm happens every 10 years or so. You'll get used to it. If we can't weaken these martial arts sects, the Ji dynasty will be in chaos, and the High Duke's public house will be in trouble." The High Duke's public house was extremely vigilant against the martial arts sections. They would also secretly sow discord among them, causing them to have grudges and kill each other. This would weaken their strength, and they would not pose a threat to the High Duke's public house. Once the martial arts world was stronger than the High Duke's public house, the prestige of the High Duke's public house would be greatly damaged. That would be a disaster. The martial arts sects would take the opportunity to stir up trouble and would never let go of the chance to expose themselves. Some would take the opportunity to expand their territory and recruit disciples, while others would rob and kill. Chuli sighed and said, "Actually, it's easy to calm this storm. The G public house can just stand up and say that they've obtained the secret manual." Lu Yurong smiled faintly. Why would the High Duke's public house do such a stupid thing? They're eager for it to happen. Chuli frowned. This matter is a little strange. I don't think it's appropriate. Sai, I'll tell you the truth, Lu Yurong said. This matter might not be the doing of the G public house. Chuli frowned and looked at her. Lu Yurong pondered for a moment, her bright eyes staring at him. Chuli said, "Is there something that I don't know?" "Fine, there's no harm in telling you. These methods are commonly used by the High Duke's public house, and also by the Imperial Court. They weaken the martial arts sect's strength, so that the Imperial Court can't suppress them and the world won't be at peace. Aren't you afraid that this will damage the country's strength?" Chuli asked. Lu Yurong smiled. What's the big deal about damaging the country's strength? As long as the Li dynasty doesn't attack, the key is to stabilize the country. The two of them were alone in the secret room, so she spoke more boldly. She told him about these cold-hearted methods so that he would not act recklessly, lest he messed up someone else's plans and made a huge enemy. If it was really the doing of the G public house, then it must have been with the Emperor's permission. No matter how strong Chuli was, he would not be able to withstand a single blow from the Emperor. You're saying that this secret manual might be the doing of the G public house? Chuli frowned. It's highly possible. Don't underestimate the talents of the High Duke's public house, Lu Yurong said. Chuli sat on the armchair and sighed. I thought it was a conspiracy by the Li dynasty to weaken the G dynasty's strength, but in the end, it was the G dynasty's doing. Sai, he shook his head and laughed. Lu Yurong looked at him with a smile. I thought you're smart enough to have guessed it long ago, and I even hinted it to you, but you always think of the Li dynasty's side, forcing me to tell you this. Chuli said impatiently. This is playing with fire. It can't be helped, Lu Yurong said. Not only the G dynasty, but the Li dynasty, the Zheng dynasty, the Fu dynasty, and the Qiu dynasty are all like this. Chuli sighed. I understand. This was the cold reality. There are no emotions, only benefits. The martial arts factions will be schemed against by the Imperial Court and the High Duke's public house, so power and martial arts were equally important. His path was not wrong, so don't interfere in this matter. Let the G public house handle it themselves, Lu Yurong said. Chuli smiled. Thank you very much. These words were not something an ordinary person could say, and Lu Yurong would not say these things to an ordinary person. It was considered a sincere and kind gesture. Lu Yurong scoffed. As long as you don't do anything stupid. As for this secret manual, I'd better cultivate it. I'll give it to you. Chuli stood up. It's late, goodbye. Hurry up and leave. Lu Yurong waved her hand and picked up the cloud-slashing treasure manual to read again. Chuli disappeared in a flash. His following days were idle, and he did not interfere with the case of the Autumn Wind Camp anymore. He only watched the changes in the martial arts world in the G public house. On the third day, he received news that Hao Ran faction was massacred by more than 10 martial arts masters in one night. Their vitality was greatly damaged, and half of their disciples were killed while the other half were injured. Chapter 556. P.S. I can only upload 5 chapters today. I've slapped myself in the face. I really don't have the face to see anyone. I didn't sleep well last night, so I was groggy the whole day. Plus, I wasn't in a good state. I wrote and wrote, then deleted again and again when I wasn't satisfied. I was frustrated and angry with myself, so I had to go to bed immediately. I couldn't come online to chat with everyone, so please forgive me. Chuli arrived at the Secret Guardian's Hall at noon. May Air courtyard was bustling with noise and excitement. Qin Jin and the other three grandmasters were sparring on the martial arts field. Their momentum was astonishing as fist and palm energy surged. Dong Qifei and the others' eyes lit up as they watched. It was rare to see a grandmaster spar, so watching a grandmaster spar would benefit them greatly. Chuli glanced at them. He did not disturb them and went to his house. Yang Zhongwen came out from a side room on the west side, knocked on the door, and entered. Chuli sat on the armchair. Any news? There's a piece of news. Yang Zhongwen took out a scroll and handed it over. Currently, there are rumors that after the cloud-slashing treasure manual disappeared from Hao Ran's sect, it fell into the hands of Taihua Valley. Chuli sat up straight. Taihua Valley? Yes. Yang Zhongwen pointed at the dossier and said, Taihua Valley seems to be within the borders of the Yi public house. I just received the news this morning. I know that the Centurion is concerned about it, so I came to report it. During this period of time, they have been watching the various sects of the martial arts world killing each other. The secret guardians of the Imperial House did not make a move and only watched from the side. The same went for the Ji public house. They looked on coldly from the sidelines, indifferent to the attack on the Hao Ran faction as if they did not know about it. The sects in the martial arts world were naturally furious that the Ji public house had helped the Hao Ran faction, but the Ji public house's indifference made the sects even more disappointed. The Hao Ran faction had been so close to the Ji public house, yet they had ended up like this. As expected, the High Duke's public house could not be trusted. Chuli shook his head and sighed to himself. The Ji public house's move was a bad move. The Hao Ran faction was completely finished, and the Ji public house's prestige was completely gone. Yang Zhongwen knew that the Centurion's attitude was purely to watch the show. Yang Zhongwen catered to the Centurion's interest and collected a lot of information in great detail. However, Taihua Valley was different this time. This was because it was within the borders of the Yi public house. It was the territory of the Centurion. Chuli took the dossier, skimmed through it, and sneered. He did not expect that there would be someone who wanted to go against Taihua Valley. It was true that a kind person would be bullied. Taihua Valley was also a second-rate faction, similar to Hao Ran faction. However, Taihua Valley only consisted of women, so in the eyes of others, they were easier to bully. Could it be the Ji public house this time? This was the Yi public house's territory. They had crossed the line. Centurion, Yang Zhongwen asked cautiously, should we take action? Chuli waved his hand and said, you may leave. I need to think about it. Yes. Yang Zhongwen hurriedly replied and left the room. Chuli stood up and paced around with his hands behind his back, trying to think of a solution. Taihua Valley would not be found so easily, but this group of people had sinister intentions. They had already expressed their desire for Taihua Valley. If they did not ruthlessly beat them up, they would not give up. How to ruthlessly teach them a lesson was the most important thing to think about. Chuli appeared on his own island, then boarded a boat and went to Iron Eagle Island. As he approached the main hall, Lin Quan came out to welcome him. He smiled and said, Chief, young Master Zhao invites you over. Chuli nodded and looked at Lin Quan. How is young Master Zhao's mood recently? Lin Quan still had white hair and a youthful complexion. His face was rosy and did not look old at all. He said in a low voice, Young Master, Zhao has been in a good mood recently. There is nothing to worry about in the outside world. All the sects in the martial arts world are quite well behaved. Have you heard about the cloud-slashing treasure manual? Chuli asked. Young Master Zhao thinks that the cloud-slashing treasure manual is nonsense. Lin Quan shook his head. Chuli said, what about Taihua Valley? Lin Quan looked at him doubtfully and shook his head. Chuli said, it seems that young Master Zhao has not received the news. Someone spread the news that Taihua Valley has the cloud-slashing treasure manual. Isn't that nonsense? Lin Quan was shocked. Of course he knew about Taihua Valley. The disciples of Taihua Valley almost never appeared in the martial arts world. They all cultivated by themselves and stood aloof from worldly affairs. He did not expect that it would be targeted by others. They wanted to use someone else to do their dirty work. What was more important was that the women that Chuli valued the most had all entered Taihua Valley. The public house had been secretly thinking of ways to protect them to prevent anyone from disturbing Tai Hua Valley and hurting Chu Li's women. The two of them chatted as they entered the main hall. CEO Taiying stood at the entrance of the main hall to welcome them. He smiled and said, Chu Li, you are a busy man now. You are a popular man in the Secret Guardians Hall, a centurion. Chu Li waved his hand and said, Young Master Xiao, something has happened. Ling Quan hurriedly explained the matter. CEO Taiying's face darkened. Sinister. Chu Li said, Unfortunately, we can't find the person who spread the rumor. There is no need to look, CEO Taiying scoffed. They will not be able to find the location of Tai Hua Valley. Chu Li shook his head. That may not be the case. It is better to be careful. CEO Taiying walked for a while and scoffed. I will send out the High Duke's order. No martial arts masters are allowed to participate in the matter of the Cloud slashing treasure manual. Chu Li laughed and shook his head. Following the rise of the E-Public House, CEO Taiying also became powerful. He was not as cautious as before. He would consider this and that. He had to carefully consider each party's attitude. CEO Taiying said, Now with the prestige of our public house, they will not dare to disobey. Chu Li said, Young Master Xiao, Tai Hua Valley will be in even more trouble. That is true. CEO Taiying nodded. The martial arts factions were most afraid of having anything to do with the High Duke's public house. They would become an anomaly and be isolated by other factions in the martial arts world. Chu Li, do you have any good ideas? CEO Taiying said, Should we secretly send some martial arts masters over? Chu Li shook his head. We can't just watch, right? CEO Taiying frowned. Chu Li said, I came over to ask young master Xiao not to care about this matter. He knew Tai Hua Valley better than others. Tai Hua Valley should be considered a first-rate faction. They had the existence of the surpassing state and the protection of the formation. However, because of the concealment of the formation and faction, they rarely interacted with other factions. Therefore, no one knew their strength, and they were looked down upon. Tai Hua Valley had always lacked the Taiwa Gold Pill, which limited the improvement of their strength. Now that they did not lack the Taiwa Gold Pill, their strength would explode. Who knew how many grandmasters they had now? CEO Taiying was stunned. He said in surprise, Don't care. Chu Li said, Just pretend that you don't know. Don't care about Tai Hua Valley. Why? CEO Taiying was in disbelief. He knew Chu Li's feelings for Chun Ying and the other women. He carefully protected them like family. Chu Li said, It's time for Tai Hua Valley to establish their power. At the same time, we can see if we can find out who is behind this. All right, I'll listen to you. CEO Taiying had a deep understanding of Chu Li's schemes. He smiled. You want to do it yourself? Chu Li smiled. I don't have to do it this time. Young Master Xiao, you have to pay attention to the movements in our territory. Wasn't the Cloud slashing treasure manual made by the G Public House? CEO Taiying frowned. Looking at this method, it seems to be the handiwork of the G Public House. Chu Li said, If it enters our territory, it's good now. I don't want it to be chaotic again. CEO Taiying shook his head. Chu Li nodded slowly. CEO Taiying scoffed. All the martial arts factions are well-behaved now. Once the Cloud slashing treasure manual comes in, I'm afraid that they will be restless again. They will take the opportunity to create chaos. The unlucky ones will be the civilians. How should we deal with it? CEO Taiying thought about it. Chu Li had already denied the High Duke order. He could only think of another way. Chapter 557. P.S. I don't dare to boast anymore today. I can only promise that I will do my best and write with all my might. I won't slack off. Please support me. Chu Li smiled and waved his hand. CEO Taiying said, Chu Li, you have a lot of ideas. What do you think? Chu Li said, If they can say it, we can say it too. Let the spies of the High Duke's public house spread the news that the Cloud slashing treasure manual is not in Tai Hua Valley, but in Tongling faction. Tongling faction. CEO Taiying thought for a moment and smiled. It's a faction in the G public house, right? Chu Li smiled and nodded. Second-rate sects have been flourishing recently. Their actions have been extreme, and they've caused quite a bit of trouble. I'm sure that the G public house will stand by and watch as they are destroyed. That's a good idea. Even if everyone doesn't believe it, they will suspect whether the Tai Hua Valley has the secret manual or not. CO, Tai Ying smiled. I'm just a little unhappy. I'm afraid we won't be able to find out who spread this news to harm Tai Hua Valley. Chu Li said, nothing more than an enemy of Tai Hua Valley. We have to find it. CO, Ting scoffed. Tai Hua Valley stands aloof from worldly affairs, yet there are still people who covet it. This is outrageous. Chu Li said, the High Duke's public house has enemies all over the world. Which faction doesn't have enemies? Even if Tai Hua Valley stands aloof from worldly affairs, it is already filled with beauties. It will definitely make people drool. Sigh. CO Tying shook his head and said, humans. Chu Li said, every time they see a beauty, they want to take her for themselves. There are many men like this. We can't kill them all. This kind of person should be taught a lesson. CO Tying scoffed. Chu Li shook his head. It's a man's nature. The High Duke's public house shouldn't get involved in this matter. It's better to just watch from the sidelines so that we don't have to take the blame. In the end, it's better if the G public house does it and the High Duke's public house takes the blame. Shameless tricks. CO Tying curled his lips in disdain. Chu Li smiled. I'm just worried that it's not the High Duke's public house's doing. As he spoke, he shook his head. These worries were not suitable to be mentioned to the eldest young master, as it would disturb the eldest young master. CO Tying was startled. He quickly asked, could it be the Emperor? Who knows? Chu Li sighed. He was still worried that it was Dali's doing. However, even if he had the ability to reach the heavens, he still couldn't figure it out even at this point. There were times when a person's strength was limited. In the face of greed, his own strength was insignificant. CO Tying's face darkened. Crouching Bull Mountain was located in a dense mountain range and was under the jurisdiction of the G public house. The surroundings were filled with lush, ancient trees that towered into the sky and blotted out the sun. There was a palace halfway up the mountain. Its glazed roof shone brightly under the sun. This was the Crouching Bull Mountain, a first-rate sect in the martial arts world. At this time, in a small courtyard at the back of the mountain, the woman's mournful wails and cries suddenly stopped. A handsome young man draped in clothes slowly walked out of the house and stood in the middle of the courtyard. At the bottom of the stairs stood an old man with white sideburns. He bowed slightly and waved his hand. Two maids timidly entered the room and quickly came out with the corpse of a young girl. The body was still soft, and there was still heat lingering on it. The two maids wrapped the corpse in a bedsheet. As they walked down the stairs, a corner of the bedsheet suddenly fell down, revealing the girl's blood-stained face. Her original appearance could no longer be seen. The old man glanced at the two maids. The two maids trembled in fright and held their breaths. Luan Zhuan 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 Shi, chewing oxum? Remains the young man looked refreshed. He looked at the rising sun and stretched. His slender body was filled with the beauty of strength. He looked up at the sun and sighed. Another beautiful day. His voice was warm and magnetic. Young lord. The old man bowed and said in a gentle voice, the news has been spread. Now we just wait to see the excitement in Tai Hua Valley. The handsome young man said lazily, very good. The old man bowed and said no more. The handsome young man came to the side of the flower bed and bent his body forward. He moved closer to a freshly bloomed flower and closed his eyes to sniff it. He looked intoxicated. Mei Ao Shuang should have received the news too, right? They're not deaf. They should know. The old man smiled. The handsome young man opened his eyes and looked at the fresh flowers. He laughed. I wonder if she will like this big gift of mine. I don't think she will like it. The old man smiled. The handsome young man laughed. She has no choice but to like it. Yes, young lord's good intentions. She has no choice but to like it. The old man bowed and smiled. The handsome young man stretched out his hand and gently plucked the fresh flower. He placed it in front of his nose and sniffed it. We could defeat her this time, right? Young lord's plan is brilliant. With the help of those crazy people, We can easily destroy Tai Hua Valley. The old man smiled, as expected of a divine plan. The handsome young man laughed and waved his hand. Xiao San, your ability to flatter people has not improved at all. The old man, Xiao San, laughed. Forgive me, young lord. I'm really clumsy with words. I say whatever I want to say. I don't know how to make it sound better. The handsome young man smiled. I like your clumsy tongue. He gently held the fresh flower in his palm and slowly tightened his grip. He then slowly opened his slender palm. The petals rolled into a ball, and the flower juice stained his hand. He let go of his hand and smiled as he watched the petals shatter. Xiao San handed over the silk handkerchief and smiled. Young lord, when do we act? There's no rush. The handsome young man wiped his hand and threw the silk handkerchief to him. I reckon these idiots won't be able to find Tai Hua Valley's territory. Yes. Xiao San caught the silk handkerchief and put it in his sleeve. Tai Hua Valley is too secretive. I'm afraid they won't be able to find it. That's why we have to help them. The handsome young man leaned in front of another fresh flower and closed his eyes to sniff it. He revealed an intoxicated expression. Find the location of Tai Hua Valley. Young lord, that's not easy, Xiao San said helplessly. I've sent people to look for it, but they couldn't find it. If your stupid method worked, Tai Hua Valley would have been exposed long ago, the handsome young man said with his eyes closed. He humphed with an intoxicated expression. You're too straightforward. You don't know how to turn a corner. Please advise me, young lord, Xiao San hurriedly said. The handsome young man opened his eyes and looked at the fresh flower with satisfaction. He reached out to pluck it and sniffed it. Think of an idea from somewhere else. Xiao San revealed an awkward expression and looked at him helplessly. The handsome young man glanced at him. Xiao San's expression became even more awkward. Please advise me, young lord. Which place in the great Ji dynasty is the most well-informed? The handsome young man sniffed the fresh flower and asked lazily. Xiao San thought for a while. The High Duke's public house? The High Duke's public house is not the most well-informed, the handsome young man lightly said. Xiao San frowned and thought hard. Suddenly, his eyes brightened. He quickly said, could it be the Imperial Court, the Secret Guardian's Hall? The handsome young man lightly said. Xiao San slapped his thigh. That's right. The handsome young man placed the fresh flower in his palm. He slowly closed his palm and clenched it tightly. He looked at the flower juice dripping from his palm and smiled. I remember father has a good friend in the Secret Guardian's Hall, right? And he's a centurion? Xiao San hurriedly nodded. Yes, the Hill Master does have a good friend. Go meet him in father's name and ask for the location of Tai Hua Valley. The handsome young man loosened his palm and the crushed flower petals fell to the ground. Yes. Xiao San nodded vigorously and quickly handed over the silk handkerchief. The handsome young man wiped his hands and threw the silk handkerchief to him. Give me news in 2 days. Chapter 558. Xiao San's light body technique was extremely good. He left crouching Bull Mountain like a gust of wind and rushed all the way. He arrived at Fairy's capital in the evening and went straight to a mansion. This was a middle-class mansion. It looked no different from its surroundings. There was no need to worry about food and clothing, but it was not rich enough either. After stepping in, it was a completely different world. There was a small bridge over flowing water, a winding path, and layers of rockery. The entire mansion was an extremely elegant garden. It was elegant, quiet, and unique. Xiao San could not bear to step in, as he was afraid of ruining the peace and quiet of the courtyard. He was led to the living room by a white-haired old man. When he entered the living room, a tall and burly middle-aged man was sipping tea. He looked at him coldly, as if he was trying to see through him. Xiao San greets Master Lu. Xiao San closed fists saluted and said respectfully. Lu Chuan put down his teacup and said, Xiao San, how long has it been? Yes, Master Lu. Xiao San closed fists saluted and said, it has been 3 years. What happened? Lu Chuan asked, did your master send you out? Xiao San shook his head and smiled. Master Lu, I am now serving the young lord. Oh, this is a promotion. Lu Chuan smiled. I really have to congratulate you. It's not as high as Master Lu's promotion. Xiao San smiled. Master Lu being promoted to a centurion is a great thing. Master and the young lord are very happy. They even got drunk. Lu Chuan smiled and said, Brother Zhuge, how have you been lately? Did you marry another girl? No, no. Xiao San shook his head. Master had some enlightenment during his cultivation. He is an isolated cultivation. The young lord is in charge now. Oh, Zhuge Tian. Lu Chuan sighed. This little guy has grown up. What brings you here this time? Xiao San was secretly impressed. Lu Chuan was able to understand the situation in Crouching Bull Mountain with just a few words. He was probably testing if he was telling the truth. These people from the Secret Guardians Hall were not easy to fool. Master Lu, I want to ask about the situation in Taihua Valley. Taihua Valley? Lu Chuan frowned. Which Taihua Valley? The one with all female disciples, Xiao San replied. Lu Chuan shook his head. It's a second-rate sect, right? Yes, yes. Xiao San nodded and smiled. Master Lu has a good memory. It is indeed a second-rate sect. Where? Lu Chuan asked. It seems to be Chongming Road, but no one knows where Taihua Valley is, so it might not be Chongming Road, Xiao San said with a smile. Lu Chuan furrowed his brows. Chongming Road. Is it the road of the public house? Yes. Xiao San nodded. Lu Chuan remained silent, deep in thought. Xiao San did not know what he meant, but he did not dare to disturb him. He looked at him carefully. After a while, Lu Chuan straightened his body and said seriously, Xiao San, tell me the truth. Why are you asking about Taihua Valley? Xiao San laughed and said, To be honest, Master Lu, the young lord has some connections with the Taihua Valley's valley leader. He wants to find them and meet Miao Shuang. Zhuge Tian has taken a liking to her? Lu Chuan scoffed. Xiao San smiled. Master Lu is wise. Lu Chuan frowned and said nothing. Xiao San looked at Lu Chuan in surprise. It was just Taihua Valley, a second-rate faction. Even if Miao Shuang was a grandmaster and a beauty, the centurion of the Secret Guardians Hall would not care about her. Right? Why was Lu Chuan's reaction so strange? After a while, Xiao San called out softly, Master Lu. He saw that Lu Chuan was lost in thought. If he did not wake him up, he might be in a daze for the whole night. Yes. Lu Chuan glanced at him. Go back and tell Zhuge Tian to put away his playful thoughts and not provoke Taihua Valley. Xiao San was even more confused. He quickly said, Master Lu, please tell me. Lu Chuan sighed and shook his head. Taihua Valley has some connections with Centurion Chu. Centurion Chu? Xiao San was shocked. The Centurion of the Secret Guardians Hall? Yes, a new Centurion. Lu Chuan waved his hand. In short, if Zhuge Tian does not want to be unlucky, he should not provoke Taihua Valley. Recently, there was news that the cloud-slashing treasure manual is in the hands of Taihua Valley. Could it be Zhuge Tian's doing? This? Xiao San hesitated. He did not know if he should admit it. Lu Chuan scoffed. If Zhuge Tian knows what's good for him, he should stay put and not mess around. Xiao San smiled in an attempt to please him. Master Lu, is this new centurion so powerful that you are so afraid of him? Lu Chuan glared at him. Why, Xiao San, are you trying to provoke me? Xiao San quickly waved his hand. I wouldn't dare. Lu Chuan scoffed. I'm not afraid of him. I'm just worried about our friendship. If we were to fall out because of you, it would not be worth it. We would see each other all the time, and it would be awkward. Yes. Xiao San quickly nodded. Lu Chuan said, just like if other sects were to touch you, would I just stand by and watch? Of course you wouldn't, Master Lu. Xiao San quickly said. He knew about the relationship between Lu Chuan and the Hill Master. He knew that the Hill Master was Lu Chuan's informant and had gotten some information from Lu Chuan. Both of them helped each other, and they might be friends, but it was still a relationship of benefit. Lu Chuan said, This new centurion is young and full of vigor. If Zhuge Tian really attacks Taihua Valley, he will definitely take care of Crouching Bull Mountain. Just you wait. We still have you, Master Lu. Xiao San laughed. Lu Chuan lightly said, Xiao San, you are a wise man. Even if I stand up for you, there is a limit to what I can do. We are all secret guardians of the secret guardians hall. We cannot kill each other. We have to follow the rules. You guys initiated a fight. Even if I stand up for you, I won't be able to protect all of you. When the time comes, who would be the most suitable scapegoat? Xiao San's expression changed. Lu Chuan scoffed. I think you're the most suitable. Xiao San quickly said, Master Lu, you really know how to joke. If you don't stop, then it's not a joke. Master Lu coldly glanced at him. Your master is an isolated cultivation. If my words don't work and Zhuge Tian acts recklessly, then I really won't stand up for you. Centurion Chu will take care of you. Is Centurion Chu very powerful? Xiao San quickly asked. Lu Chuan said, You should have heard of him. Chu Li, the former chief of the Yi public house. Chu Li. Xiao San thought for a while and slapped his thigh. So it's him. Lu Chuan smiled. Now you know how powerful this guy is. Xiao San laughed. He is indeed a powerful person. He is not inferior to the young lord. Lu Chuan laughed. Xiao San laughed along with him. Lu Chuan looked at Xiao San and could not help but laugh again. Xiao San looked at him awkwardly. Lu Chuan laughed. You really dare to say that he is not inferior to Zhuge Tian? Huh? Xiao San said. The young lord is very talented. Most people cannot compare to him. This Chu Li is somewhat comparable. Lu Chuan sighed helplessly. In your eyes, is your young lord that powerful? Of course. Xiao San said matter-of-factly. At the young lord's age, how many people can become grandmasters? That's true. Zhuge Tian's talent is indeed extraordinary. All right, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. In short, don't provoke Tai Hua Valley. It's getting late. You should hurry back. Then where is Tai Hua Valley? I can't be bothered with your stupid business. Lu Chuan impatiently waved his hand. Chapter 559. Lu Chuan glared at him and waved his hand. Don't look at me like that. I'm not saving you dinner. Xiao San squeezed a flattering smile on his face. Master Lu, actually, we don't want to do anything to Tai Hua Valley. We just want to see more of them and let Mei Ao Shuang know of young lord's brilliance and martial prowess, so that she can fall in love with young lord. Zhuge Tian is quite a handsome man. Lu Chuan rubbed his chin and said calmly, Does a man like him lack women? The key is that young master has high standards. Xiao San sighed and said helplessly, How can ordinary women catch young master's eyes? You sure have high standards, Lu Chuan said. I heard that Mei Ao Shuang is an absolute beauty. Yes. Xiao San hurriedly nodded and said, Young master fell in love with her as soon as he saw her. Unfortunately, Valley Master Mei is too cold and arrogant. She keeps people at arm's length. I could only use this method to get close to her. That's a strange method, Lu Chuan said. Won't we become enemies this way? Young lord said that it's fine as long as you remember him. Xiao San smiled and said, Love comes from hatred. What I'm most afraid of is forgetting him without thinking about it. I don't have the time to chase after women with you. Lu Chuan waved his hand and said, But you have to understand that this is playing with fire. Tai Hua Valley is not to be trifled with, and you even turned love into hate. What a joke. I thought it was just a child playing house. Once a life and death enmity is formed, it's impossible to resolve. As soon as he finished speaking, he got up to leave. Sigh. Xiao San stomped his feet and sighed. Master Lu, it seems like I have to tell you the truth. Lu Chuan sits down. You should have told me the truth. Xiao San said, Young master wants to be the hero and save the damsel in distress. Lu Chuan gave him a sidelong glance. Are you telling me the truth this time? It's absolutely true, Xiao San said with a bitter face. Young master didn't allow me to reveal it to others. If the news really gets out, young master won't have a chance. It's a life-changing event. Lu Chuan said, Zhuge Tian isn't an idiot. Why is he always doing stupid things? Xiao San blinked and looked at him in confusion. Lu Chuan scoffed. You think a hero can win the heart of a beauty just by saving her? How naive. Xiao San said, Don't all women like men who are heroic? Although Valley Master Mei is the Valley Master, she is still a woman. Forget it. Anyway, I won't get involved in this mess. Lu Chuan impatiently waved his hand and said, hurry up and get lost. Tell him to behave himself. If he causes trouble, I won't clean up his mess. Xiao Sin did not give up and squeezed out a flattering smile. Master Lu, you and Master are good friends. Now that Master is in seclusion, young Master's marriage will be in your hands. You can't just ignore it. Marriage? What a joke. Lu Chuan said unhappily. Let me tell you, this Mei Ao Shuang is very likely related to Centurion Chu. Your young master wants to steal Centurion Chu's woman. Tell me, can I help you? It can't be. Xiao San was shocked. Valley Master, Mei has her eyes on the top of her head. How could she fall for a man so easily? Even the young master has to pursue it properly before he can achieve good things. I've already said what I need to say. It's up to you whether you want to listen or not. Lu Chuan said, if anything happens, don't look for me. I won't fall out with my colleagues over such a trivial matter. I won't see you out. Master Lu, Xiaosin quickly said, I still don't know where Taihua Valley is. I don't know. Lu Chuan scoffed and turned to leave. Meeting such a rascal. If he could not chase him away, he could only leave himself. He walked out of the main hall and turned to the backyard. If it was any other time, he would not care about such matters and turn a blind eye. He was not his father. It was Zhuge Feng's problem if he did not discipline him well. It was not his place to interfere. However, this matter was different. It involved Chu Li. If Chu Li was an ordinary centurion, he would not have so many concerns. After all, Zhuge Tian had Crouching Bull Mountain behind him. It was a first-class sect and was not weak. However, Chu Li had the public house behind him. It was not something that Crouching Bull Mountain could compare to. He would rather ignore Crouching Bull Mountain than offend Chu Li. This was the most basic way to avoid danger. As a centurion, he naturally understood this. On the evening of the second day, the setting sun dyed the courtyard red. The fresh flowers looked as if they were smeared with rouge. They were exceptionally beautiful. Zhuge Tian squinted his eyes as he lay on a rocking chair. The setting sun shone on his face, making it look even more handsome. His voice was warm and magnetic. Did Lu Chuan really say that? Yes. Xiao San sighed. Young lord, I am useless. I cannot find out where Taihua Valley is. Looks like I have a rival in love. Zhuge Tian chuckled. He looked at the sky dyed red by the setting sun. The corner of his mouth curled down. His smile was sarcastic and disdainful. His voice was cold. He wants to fight for a woman with me. He can only die. Xiaosin said, Young lord, this Chu Li is very famous. He is a legendary person. He is the chief of the public house, the head chief of the imperial residence of King Yin, and now he is the centurion of the secret guardians hall. He is really powerful. Very good. Zhuge Tian rocked lightly. He was carefree. A rival in love like this is more interesting to kill. My days are finally not so boring. Xiao San hesitated. I think Master Lu is very afraid of Chu Li. He's been an official for too long. He is getting more and more timid. No matter how strong his martial arts is, if he is not smart enough, he will still die. Zhuge Tian said with disdain. Xiao San smiled. Chu Li is powerful, but compared to you, young lord, he is still far behind. Zhuge Tian glanced at him. Xiao San smiled awkwardly. Young lord, I mean what I said. You mean what you said, but it is too direct. It doesn't feel good. Zhuge Tian shook his head. Yes, yes. Xiao San smiled. How do we deal with Chu Li? Should I inform the mountain chieftain? Zhuge Tian frowned. Xiao San was shocked. He quickly smiled. I am afraid that the Hill Master does not want to provoke Chu Li. After all, he is so famous. The older you are in Jianghu, the more timid you become. My father is like that. You are the same. Timid as a mouse. Zhuge Tian shook his head. Yes, yes, I am indeed timid. Xiao San quickly said. If the Hill Master comes out of isolation, young lord will not be so free. So we have to hurry. When the Hill Master comes out, we will kill Chu Li. That makes sense. You are finally smart for once. Zhuge Tian glanced at him. Young lord, you are flattering me. Xiao San smiled. But what about Valley Leader Mei? Since she has been involved with another man, she is no longer pure. She can only die. Zhuge Tian sighed. She had the good fortune to be the young madam. What a pity. Yes, yes, she is not fated to do so. Xiao San shook his head. Zhuge Tian looked at the sunset and said slowly, "Get someone to spread the news that Chu Li has the cloud-slashing treasure manual and that Taihua Valley gave it to him." Wonderful. Truly wonderful. Xiaoxin gave a thumbs up. This time, no matter how powerful his martial arts is, he will not be able to stop everyone from chasing after him. Chapter 560. Chuli sat under the plum tree in Mayer Courtyard, sipping on his tea. A cool breeze blew gently. Shouts and shouts could be heard from the martial arts field in the distance. Dong Qifei shouted from time to time. Yang Zhongwen held a stack of files and stood in front of him to report. Although the rumors were flying around, and almost the entire martial arts world of the Great Ji Dynasty knew that the cloud-slashing treasure manual had fallen into the hands of Taihua Valley, no sect took any action. They were all waiting for someone else to snatch Taihua Valley before they would snatch it themselves. The root cause was that Taihua Valley was located within the borders of the E-Public House. Now that the E-Public House's momentum was astonishing, they had a marriage alliance with the Hawaii Public House and the imperial residence of King, and they could be said to be a colossus. Any faction that caused trouble in the territory of the E-Public House would definitely end up badly. These people of Wulin were impulsive, but they were not stupid. Seeing the situation, whoever stood out would be the unlucky one, so they all shrank back and kept their composure. Soon after, there were rumors that the E-Public House had obtained the secret manual. Some said that the Tongling faction had obtained the secret manual, and some said that other factions had obtained the secret manual. All kinds of news flew everywhere. People were a little hesitant. What if someone had framed them and Taihua Valley did not obtain the secret manual? If that was the case, the E-Public House would definitely not spare those who attacked. With this thought in mind, people were even more reluctant to attack Taihua Valley. Most importantly, people did not know the exact location of Taihua Valley. In a vast martial arts world, not a single person knew of Taihua Valley. It was as if Taihua Valley did not exist in the world. There was no trace of it at all. Even if they wanted to kill their way in, they would not be able to find the door. Who said that martial arts masters are stupid? They're the real idiots. Yang Zhongwen put down the scroll and smiled at Chu Li. They're all very smart. The brain is driven by greed. No matter how smart a person is, they will still be stupid. Chu Li calmly said, "Can you find out who released the news?" Difficult. Yang Zhongwen smiled bitterly. It's too easy to spread a rumor. Chu Li said, "These people really won't let me rest. How's the Tongling sect?" There are already people gathered in Tianxing City, which is not far from the Tongling sect. Yang Zhongwen said, "Looks like they'll make a move. Tongling faction isn't like Taihua Valley, and the G Public House doesn't have as much of a deterrent as the E Public House." Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. Yang Zhongwen said, "Centurion, I think this storm is about to pass." Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Yang Zhongwen shook his head. Up until now, not a single person has actually seen the cloud-slashing treasure manual. They've only heard about it, but not seen it. None of us are fools, so we won't be fooled for too long. If the secret manual doesn't appear in a few more days, I'm afraid everyone will disperse. I'm afraid it won't be that easy, Chu Li said. Yang Zhongwen said, "Judging from the current situation, there are fewer and fewer people chasing after the cloud-slashing treasure manual. Moreover, the news is flying everywhere, and there are all kinds of people saying all kinds of things. Everyone's line of sight is also confused, and that's why their enthusiasm has dissipated. I'm sure some people are disappointed," Chu Li said calmly. Yang Zhongwen nodded lightly. Dong Qifei strode over and gave him a fist salute. Centurion Lu requests your presence." Chu Li looked at him. Dong Qifei said, "Just now, a secret guardian from the Juwu courtyard came to inform me that Centurion Lu Chuan wants to see you." Chu Li pondered for a moment. I'll go take a look." Yang Zhongwen hurriedly said, "Why did Centurion Lu suddenly. The relationship between the centurion Lu and the other centurions was very cold. He usually did not interact with them. If there was anything, it was Yang Zongwen, Dong Qifei, and the Ning brothers who would run errands. The centurion Lu would not personally appear. Chu Li said, "You'll know when to go take a look." Yang Zongwen hurriedly said, "Centurion Lu Chuan is a man of unyielding character. He acts in an overbearing manner, but he is also meticulous in his rough ways." Chu Li nodded and walked out. Yang Zongwen followed him worriedly. He acts unscrupulously and is not afraid of offending people. Centurion, you still have to be careful. Chu Li laughed. I just happen to not know how to get to the Juwu courtyard. Bring me there. All right, Yang Zongwen hurriedly said. Dong Qifei casually followed behind him and pursed his lips. This elder Yang was indeed careful. There was no need to say so much. Who was not afraid of the centurion Lu now? The three of them arrived in front of courtyard. It was 1/3 smaller than the Mayer courtyard. They knocked on the door and entered. The courtyard was bustling with activity. More than 60 people were cultivating. The noise was incessant. It was completely different from the emptiness of the Mayer courtyard. There were only about 10 people in the huge courtyard of the Mayer courtyard. It seemed empty and lacking in people. There was a protector at the door. When he saw Yang Zongwen and Dong Qifei, he smiled and led them to the living room. Chu Li entered the living room. Yang Zongwen and Dong Qifei stayed outside. Lu Chuan stood up and smiled. He closed fist saluted. Brother Chu, come in. Please come in. Chu Li closed fist saluted. Brother Lu, thank you for your hospitality. I can't wait for Brother Chu to come. Lu Chuan invited Chu Li to take a seat. There were only the two of them in the living room. Soon, a maid served them tea. The two of them picked up their teacups and took a sip. Lu Chuan put down his teacup and coughed. Brother Chu, I invited you here because I have something to discuss with you. Chu Li smiled. Brother Lu, please speak. Lu Chuan said, as secret guardians, we all have our own informants. Yes. Chu Li smiled. Without informants, one would be blind. We can't rely on the public house. That's right. Lu Chuan smiled. Crouching Bull Mountain's Zhuge Feng is my informant. We can be considered friends when we were young. Chu Li was surprised. Brother Lu, you're very capable. Crouching Bull Mountain is a first-rate faction. To have the leader of the hill as your informant. No wonder Brother Lu rose so quickly. Huh. I'm much worse than you, Brother Chu. Lu Chuan waved his hand. Chu Li shook his head. It's just a coincidence. My foundation isn't stable. If it was somewhere else, Brother Chu, you would have an unstable foundation if you suddenly rose to such a high position at such a young age. Lu Chuan chuckled. However, the Secret Guardians Hall is different. We rely on our own abilities and not on trickery. Although you're young, you have a solid foundation. Not everyone can compare to you. You deserve to be the Centurion. He was not flattering him. What did the Secret Guardians Hall rely on to achieve merits? First, information. Second, ability. Information was the most important. Knowing more information than others meant having an extra pair of eyes meant having an extra advantage over others. Needless to say, Chu Li's ability was far better than the average person. The number of informants he had was the scariest part. Just the High Duke's public house, as his informant, was far more than the other secret guardians. In addition to the informants from the imperial residence, the commander promoting him to the Centurion was not an impulsive decision. Chu Li smiled. Brother Lu, you flatter me. Lu Chuan sighed. There's something that makes me feel conflicted. It's hard to make a decision. On one hand, it's our friendship. On the other hand, it's our colleague. I don't want to lose my informant, but I don't want to see my colleague at a disadvantage. Sigh. He shook his head as he spoke. Chu Li said seriously, Brother Lu, can you teach me? Don't worry, Brother Lu. I'm not going to leave just like that. I'll repay you in the future. Lu Chuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. I really can't say much. Chu Li frowned. I have nothing to do with Crouching Bull Mountain. Why would they harm me? Lu Chuan said, since ancient times, beautiful women are the source of trouble. What the ancients said can't be wrong. Crouching Bull Mountain's Zhuge Feng is an isolated cultivation. His son Zhuge is in charge. Zhuge has fallen in love with Taihua Valley's leader Mei. Chu Li's eyes flashed. He smiled. Chapter 561. Chu Li laughed and closed fist saluted. Thank you, Brother Lu. I will definitely repay you for what you said today. Lu Chuan waved his hand and said, We're colleagues. No matter how much trouble there is in the secret Guardian's Hall, it's our own business. We're not on the same path as the people in the martial arts world, so we can never be true friends. It's like a cat and a mouse. Chu Li smiled and nodded. This Lu Chuan was indeed a powerful person. He viewed friendship as nothing and only cared about profit. This kind of person could not be open to heart, could not be befriended, but could be used, cooperated, and exchanged for benefits. Lu Chuan said, If it wasn't for my friendship with Zhuge Feng, I wouldn't have told you, Brother Chu. I would have just taken care of this brat. Looks like he's also a powerful figure, Chu Li said. Lu Chuan nodded lightly. He's already a grandmaster at such a young age. He's extremely talented. A grandmaster. Chu Li nodded. He doesn't know the location of Taihua Valley, right? Of course, how could I tell him? Lu Chuan snorted. I know Chongming Road is your territory. Thank you, Brother Lu. Chu Li smiled. Lu Chuan waved his hand and laughed. Actually, you don't have to thank me. I don't even know where Taihua Valley is. Huh. In today's world, I'm afraid only the disciples of Taihua Valley know about this, but they almost never leave the valley. Chu Li burst into laughter and shook his head. I don't know either. Lu Chuan said, Just be careful of this Zhuge. You can't underestimate young people nowadays. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Lu Chuan laughed. I heard you beat old Ma to the ground. I've embarrassed myself, Brother Lu. Chu Li shook his head. Lu Chuan said, Old Ma's mouth has offended everyone in the secret Guardian's Hall. If you beat him up, everyone will be happy. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. The hatred in his heart can't be quelled, and he knows that I can't do anything to him. So, he recklessly causes trouble. I can only resort to this. I don't know if he'll remember this lesson after this. Old Ma. Lu Chuan shook his head and sighed. He doesn't know what's good for him and is stubborn. You have to be careful. After all, he was once a centurion. He still has a few loyal subordinates. Chu Li smiled and gave a fist salute. Thank you, Brother Lu. I'll take my leave now. I won't see you out. Lu Chuan stood up and cupped his fists. He came out of Ju Wu courtyard deep in thought. Right at that moment, Ning Zhongyun's plump body hurried over and said in a low voice, Centurion, something bad has happened. Chu Li looked up at him. Ning Guiyun looked to his left and right. Seeing that there was no one around, he lowered his voice and said, There's suddenly a rumor in Fairy's capital that you've obtained the Cloud-slashing treasure manual. The Cloud-slashing treasure manual? Chu Li laughed. Have I obtained it? Yes. Ning Zhongyuan nodded hard. This is not good, Centurion. Chu Li said, Where did this nonsense come from? He was sure that Lu Yurong would not harm him by making up this rumor. However, this information was only known to Lu Yurong. It was hard not to suspect her. Could it be that someone else had accidentally heard it from her? She was too smart to make such a mistake. Ning Zhongyuan said, Centurion, we know that it's just a rumor. You're always in the secret Guardian's Hall, but other people don't know about it. Moreover, the rumor is very convincing. How did you achieve the Grandmaster's boundary within 2 years? It's because you have the Cloud-slashing treasure manual. That makes sense. Chu Li could not help but laugh. His words really had a flawless feeling. Ning Zhongyuan said, Centurion, even we don't fully believe it, let alone others. Then what do they want? Snatch my secret manual? Chu Li said snappily. Ning Zhongyuan said, Centurion, don't underestimate everyone's desire for the secret manual. Who wouldn't be envious that they could become grandmasters in an instant? That's why Centurion should bring more protectors. Elder Qin and the others have decided to escort you back to the imperial residence. All right. Chu Li hesitated for a moment and nodded. Becoming a grandmaster within 2 years was indeed a great temptation, especially when other people knew that he had the secret manual and that he could achieve it once he obtained it. Who wouldn't be tempted? Even the four major sects would be tempted, right? It was not easy to cultivate the martial arts of the four major sects and become a grandmaster. A genius like Fa Yuan probably had to cultivate for a few years before he could achieve it. If he could obtain the Cloud slashing treasure manual, he could become a grandmaster in 2 years. Wouldn't the number of grandmasters in the sect increase rapidly? Ning Zhongyan whispered, Centurion, did you really obtain the secret manual? Chu Li said snappily, if I really obtained the secret manual, I would have given it to the House of High Dukes. Why would I keep it until now? Hee, that's true. Ning Zhongyuan nodded. Yang Zhongwen said, Centurion, you're in big trouble. Everyone might really think that you've given it to the House of High Dukes. Chu Li frowned and realized that he was in trouble. If he really gave it to the House of High Dukes, then the House of High Dukes would soon have a large number of grandmasters. It had not even been 2 years since he became a grandmaster. With that, the House of High Dukes would not be able to prove that he did not have the secret manual. This time, he and the House of High Dukes would be in trouble. It seemed like Lu Yirong's method. Everyone must be jealous and want to snatch the secret manual. Ning Zhongyuan said. Chu Li said, do you guys want the secret manual? There's really a secret manual? Ning Zhongyuan was shocked. Chu Li smiled and said, what do you think? Ning Zhongyuan laughed and said, I don't think so. Chu Li stared at him. Ning Zhongyuan was sure that he had the secret manual. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to cultivate so quickly. Chu Li said, doesn't everyone doubt that the Cloud slashing treasure manual is really that magical? It can make someone become a grandmaster in 2 years? Everyone believes it anyway. Ning Zhongyuan said. Yang Zhongwen sighed and said softly, could it be second in command, Ma? Chu Li said, we'll talk about it later. Whoever did it will definitely give himself away. Help me find out about the Crouching Bull Mountain. Yes. Yang Zhongwen nodded. In the evening, Chu Li walked back. Qin Jin and the other 3 grandmasters followed by his side. Along the way, Chu Li noticed that several grandmasters appeared in the surroundings. They were secretly spying on him. They were restless and eyeing him. Chu Li frowned. It seemed that the news spread quickly and everyone believed it. They all harbored malicious intentions and wanted to snatch it. If it were not for Qin Jin and the other 3, they would have already pounced on him. The temptation of the secret manual was too great. They snatched the secret manual not only for themselves, but also for their sections, especially the masters from the second-rate sections. These second-rate sects did not produce grandmasters themselves. They had to invite them from the outside and use all kinds of connections to rope them in. If they had the Cloud slashing treasure manual, they would not need to be in the surpassing state to become a grandmaster. Second-rate sects would instantly become first-rate sections. Their rise could be expected. Chu Li shook his head secretly. These people were really crazy. They did not think about whether they could keep the secret manual even if they had it. The destruction of their sects was right in front of them. Even if they covered their faces, would they stop chasing after them after snatching it? Centurion, let's stay for the night. Qin Jin said at the entrance of the imperial residence of King, and Chu Li smiled and said, the imperial residence protectors are enough. You can go back and rest. Then we'll come over tomorrow morning. Yes. Chapter 562. The lanterns were lit, and the Tianshu courtyard was as bright as day. Chu Li sat by the stone table, which was filled with dishes. He held a pair of chopsticks and ate slowly, absent-mindedly. Xiao Shi wore a light yellow gown and sat opposite him. Her face was as white as jade. She held a bowl and looked at him. What happened again? Chu Li put down his chopsticks and took a sip from the white jade cup. Trouble again. What trouble? Xiao Shi put down her bowl and said nonchalantly, tell me. She did not care much about life and death, nor did she care about trouble. Chu Li explained the situation to her. Xiao Shi said, so, they're here to steal the secret manual? Chu Li nodded. Of course they will. If it were me, I would do the same. Then what's there to say? Let's fight. Xiao Shi scoffed and said, we'll kill whoever comes. Let's see if they still dare to steal it. I'm just afraid they'll use other methods. Chuli frowned. They'll deal with you. Then come. Seo sure did not care. It depends on their abilities. They won't kill me. If I die, you won't hand over the secret manual. You'll have time to save yourself. Chuli laughed. Seo sure said, if it doesn't work, go to the Spirit Crane's peak. It's not safe. Chuli shook his head. He did not know if other spirit beasts would smell her scent if she stayed for too long. The abilities of spirit beasts should not be underestimated. Many of them were beyond imagination. If spirit cranes had natural enemies, then staying at the Spirit Crane's peak would be suicide. To humans, the battle between spirit beasts was like encountering a grandmaster who did not know martial arts. It could easily lead to death. Seo was fine. She ran out when things went south. Seo sure did not know martial arts, so she could only wait for death. As the two of them were talking, a deep shout came from outside. Assassins! Zhu Tianhua's thunderous voice rang. His tall and burly body leaped out of the courtyard and faced the 10 men in black. Lu Xing and the others rushed to the Tianshu courtyard to protect Seo Shi. Chuli said, focus on them. I'll stay here. Yes, head chief. Lu Xing and the others said. Chuli's voice resounded in the sky above King An's imperial residence. It was clearly heard by everyone in King An's imperial residence. Zheng lied, protect the royal highness. Everyone else, stay in the house and don't come out. The rest of the Grandmaster's protectors, annihilate the assassins. Leave none alive. Yes. Shouts came from all directions. Chuli turned to look at Shao Qi and Lu Su. I'll send you off first. Let's go to Qingyin town, Seo Shi said. I'll just sleep there tonight. Chuli nodded lightly. He wrapped his arms around the waist of the two girls and suddenly disappeared from Tianshu courtyard. In the next moment, he appeared in a small courtyard in Qingyin city. He looked about him and felt relieved. Almost no one in Qingyin town knew that they had been here, and their identities had never been leaked. As long as young Baoshu did not make any mistakes, no one would disturb him. At that moment, young Baoshu was running around in the courtyard while his mother chased after him with a broom. Her face was red with anger. Chuli shook his head with a smile and returned to the imperial residence of King, and bang, 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 bang. The palms collided, and the sounds of fists colliding could be heard. There were 6 grandmasters in the imperial residence of King and against 10 grandmasters, and they were at a disadvantage. Chuli sneered to himself. 10 grandmasters was not something that could be easily gathered. Even in the fairies' capital, it was almost the number of protectors of a royal highness. These people were trying to kill him in one go. The heavenly demonic orb fell into his precordium, and infinite energy surged in his body. In a flash, he appeared behind a masked man in black and punched him. The Shura palm was silent and fast like a ghost. Bang! The masked man was alarmed. He wanted to dodge, but he was powerless. The palm energy had already landed on his back. He was shot more than 10 meters away and landed in a courtyard. He was silent and motionless. Chuli extended his index finger with his other hand and pointed. Poof! A soft sound was heard, and a masked man in black was hit by the petrifying finger. Chuli suddenly appeared behind him and pressed his Shura palm. Bang! The masked man in black was sent flying. Spiritual energy surged in from all directions. The scripture of duality circulated quickly and quickly replenished his inner energy. Chuli's left hand finger energy attacked another person. This was a skinny masked man in black. Under the black cloth was a lean face, and he was about 50 years old. As soon as the petrifying finger was unleashed, the thin black-clothed masked man sensed that something was amiss. He moved sideways to evade, but another finger attack had already arrived. It was soundless, and apart from the gentle night breeze, it did not arouse his vigilance at all. When the finger energy was in front of him, he was alarmed. The spear finger attack had already hit him. It was like a gentle breeze, but once it entered his body, it did not seem to have any power. His heart suddenly contracted as if a pair of scissors was cutting it. He used all his strength to resist the scissors, and his inner energy protected his heart so that it would not be cut. Bang! He felt a slight pain in his back, and a cold force instantly rushed into him. His inner energy could not resist this cold force at all. Just as it was about to devour him, the inner energy suddenly changed. The cold became hot, and his whole body felt like it was on fire. His vision darkened, and he could not wake up anymore. Chu swung his left hand, and a cold light shot toward the masked man in black 5 steps away. The masked man in black pushed out his palm, trying to deflect the flying blade. Chi! The flying blade pierced through his palm without any resistance. The flying blade dodged his palm and continued forward, shooting into his right chest and out from his back with a spray of blood. Chu shot another blade. The masked man wanted to move, but he could not. All the energy in his body seemed to be drained from the wound on his right chest. He felt weak all over, and when his movements slowed down, he could only watch as the flying blade shot into his heart. He could not hold on any longer, and he fell limply. Chu took down 3 masked men in black in the blink of an eye. Zhu Tianhua and the others were energized. 6 people against 7, but they had the upper hand. Under Chu Li's extraordinary strength, the power of the flying blade increased by a few times. Even if he did not use the infinite Azure Sea, the power was still shocking. At close range, it was almost impossible to dodge, and only those with the best light body technique would have a chance to escape. He laughed coldly and appeared behind a masked man in black in a flash. The masked man in black shouted, turned his head, and struck out with his palm. He was prepared for this move from Chu Li. Chu Li struck out with his palm. Bang! There was a muffled sound, and Chu Li stood firmly on the roof. The masked man in black took 3 steps back and broke a few tiles. Chu Li threw out a silver light with his left hand. A cold light suddenly shone from the masked man's waist, and he held his blade in front of him. Ding! The flying blade hit the blade. The long blade hit the masked man's chest, and his breath stagnated. Another cold light shot out, piercing through his heart, and flew into the night sky with a spray of blood. Go! The other 6 masked men saw that the situation was not good, and if this continued, they would definitely die. Chu Li laughed coldly. Stop them. Don't leave a single one alive. Yes. Zhu Tianhua and the others were energized. They would rather both sides suffer than let them escape. Chu Li circled around them like a shadow. He shot out Spear Finger Strike, and at the same time, he shot out Petrifying Finger. The Spear Finger Strike was silent, and the Petrifying Finger was invisible. They could only rely on the warning signs of Grandmasters to avoid them. These 2 martial arts were specially created by the Tempest Temple to restrain Grandmasters. They were the unique martial arts of the Tempest Temple, and they had never seen them before, so they did not know how to avoid them. Soon, 2 of them were hit by the Petrifying Finger, and another 2 by the Spear Finger. Chu Li's flying blade shot out, and 4 of them died. Chapter 563. P.S. My monthly votes have increased by more than 600 votes. This is too shocking. I can't express my gratitude in words. I can only work hard and update more today. If I don't, I won't be able to express my gratitude. The other 2 masked men escaped to the east and west respectively. Their light body technique was the best, and they were the fastest to escape. By the time Chu Li killed 4 of them, they had already escaped a mile away and disappeared into the night. Chu Li's face darkened. His murderous intent surged, but he was extremely calm. He suddenly appeared behind one of them. He used the Petrifying Finger on his left hand and the Spear Finger on his right. These 2 finger energies were silent. Only when the finger energies were close would a Grandmaster be alerted. The masked man in black moved a meter to the side. His light body technique was extremely fast, and he managed to avoid the 2 finger energies by a hair's breadth. A layer of cold sweat appeared on his back. That was too close. Just as he thought about his luck, a cold glint appeared in front of him. He could not avoid it. He had seen how his companions ended up dealing with flying blades. He knew that he could not use palm energy or fist energy to block it. The only way was to avoid it. In desperation, he moved sideways again and barely avoided being hit in the heart. His left shoulder was pierced. His body suddenly froze. A strange inner energy from the flying blade entered his body. His inner energy stagnated, and his body stopped as well. He channeled with all his might. Just as he was about to recover, he stopped again. His heartbeat seemed to have stopped as well. This was the petrifying finger. A cold glint flashed in front of him. The flying blade pierced through his heart without any resistance. The flying blade was shot at an extremely precise time. He only paused for a moment. He almost recovered and dodged the flying blade. That one moment was the difference between life and death. He fell on his back and stared at Chu Li angrily. Chu Li disappeared from the spot. The other masked man in black was extremely fast. When Chu Li made his move, he was already 5 miles away and out of the observation range of the omniscient mirror. Chu Li flashed and appeared at the last place where he escaped from the omniscient mirror. The masked man in black fell into the observation range of the omniscient mirror again. Chu Li flashed and appeared behind him again. Chu Li, don't go too far. The masked man stopped and stood on a roof. He stared coldly at Chu Li. He knew that his movement technique was not fast enough and that he could not escape. Rather than being chased to death, it was better to fight to the death. Perhaps he might have a chance of survival. Chu Li looked at him calmly. Show me your trump card, lest you die a wrongful death. Humph, arrogant. The black-clothed masked man sneered. The nocturnal clothes fluttered fiercely, like a balloon that had been filled with air, and immediately stuck to his body. His eyes quickly became bloodshot, and he was as violent and vicious as a wild beast, as if he wanted to tear Chu Li apart and devour him. He growled, "Die." With a low growl, he turned into a black arrow and shot toward Chu Li. Chu Li watched as he madly burned his own blood essence and turned it into an incomparably ferocious attack. Chu Li shook his head and disappeared in a flash. Bang! The man in black could release his palm energy, but he could not retract it. As the energy surged out, the roof where Chu Li was standing just now was instantly broken through. Debris fell with a crash, and a scream came from below the house. Chu Li appeared behind the man in black in a flash. A blurry sword light flashed from his waist and quickly circled around the black-clothed man. The man in black looked down at his chest in disbelief. The tip of the modesty sword appeared on his chest, from his back to his front. The strange force from his sword made him feel as if he was frozen, and he could not move. He turned his head with difficulty. "You?" Chu Li frowned at him. He suddenly realized that there was a faintly discernible heat flow from the sword. This heat flow disappeared in a flash, as if it had never appeared, but the satisfaction from his body could not be ignored. It was like a person who was dying of thirst drank a big mouthful of clear spring water. He pulled out his sword and retreated. The man in black staggered and fell on the roof, rolling along the eaves to the ground. There was a loud bang, and it was especially loud in the night sky. The owner of the house did not move again. He lay in the house and did not dare to come out. Chu Li looked down at the man in black, and he was already dead. The heavenly demonic orb once again condensed above his heart. It was extremely blue, accompanied by flashes of lightning. He frowned as he stood on the roof. The moonlight was like water, and a gust of wind blew, causing his white robe to flutter. He felt something strange. In the past, whenever he used the heavenly demonic power, he would be extremely hungry, as if he could swallow 10 cows. His appetite was endless. Along with the hunger, there was also a faint weakness. His body was strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. His body was empty, and he could fall at any time. Now, however, he did not feel the usual hunger and weakness. That faintly discernible heat flow replenished the consumption of his heavenly demonic power. He had been wondering. The 5th level of the heavenly demonic power was no different from the 4th level. It was just that the transformation of the body was faster and clearer, and he could imitate it perfectly. Even the voice and temperament were exactly the same. He thought that this was the change of the 5th level, but now it seemed that the change of the 5th level was this heat flow. He mostly used his finger energy, palm energy, and flying daggers to kill people. He usually used his sword technique the least. This was because grandmasters were very dangerous. Once he got close, he might use a secret skill to perish together, just like the secret skill of the Holy Church of Light. Therefore, it was best to stay as far away as possible. It seemed that he would have to try his sword technique to kill people in the future. What was that heat flow just now? The first 4 levels devoured inner energy, and the 5th level started to devour this more exquisite power. He returned to the imperial residence of King, and with curiosity and doubts. Head Chief, Lu Xing and the others welcomed him and closed-fist saluted in admiration. They did not think that they would really kill 10 grandmasters in one go. There were only a few grandmasters in the world today. 10 of them were killed in one go. It was a shocking achievement. Let's see who still dares to barge into the imperial residence of King In. Zhu Qianhua's tall and burly body stood out among the crowd. He clutched his chest, his face pale. Chu Li said, "Zhu Tianhua, why are you still holding on? Hurry up and take the spirit medicine." Zhu Tianhua was extremely brave just now. He was not afraid of death. He single-handedly fought against 3 grandmasters and suffered quite a heavy injury. Zhu Tianhua forced a smile. "Head Chief, my body constitution is special. I will be fine after one night." Chu Li nodded and glanced at the crowd. There might be more disturbances at night. Split into 2 groups and do not act alone. Yes. The crowd responded loudly. Chu Li waved his hand. "Go. After tonight, everyone will get a spirit blessing pill." "Thank you, Head Chief." The crowd was overjoyed. A spirit blessing pill was equivalent to a life. It was especially precious to a grandmaster. The reward from the Head Chief was too generous. Chu Li returned to his courtyard and pondered in silence. Who was the one who plotted against him? Was it Lu Yurong? He was a little suspicious. This method of killing 2 birds with 1 stone was very similar to Lu Yurong. However, he did not believe it. An inexplicable instinct told him that it was not Lu Yurong. So who was it? He hoped that killing these 10 grandmasters would deter those people who were eyeing him covetously. He hoped that they would understand that the cloud-slashing treasure manual was not that easy to snatch. He was deep in thought when he suddenly looked up. Lu Yurong floated down from the top of the wall. Her clothes were as white as snow. Chu Li said coldly, "You still have the cheek to come." Lu Yurong was stunned. She rolled her eyes at him. "What did I do? It's all your fault." Chu Li laughed coldly. "Are you satisfied now?" Lu Yurong said snappily, "You really think that I did it?" Chapter 564. Lu Yurong turned and left. Her white robe fluttered like a cloud. She walked slowly but was extremely fast. Chu Li said slowly, "It wasn't you?" Lu Yurong floated back again and sat opposite him. A faint fragrance wafted into his nose. It was refreshing and made his mind wander. Unfortunately, she liked women. He once again had this regretful thought, but his gaze was sharp as he stared at her. "You're the only one who knows that I have the cloud-slashing treasure manual. Moreover, the rumors outside are so logical and flawless. This is not the work of an ordinary person. If I were to spread rumors, I wouldn't be so simple and crude." Lu Yurong said snappily, "I would boast about the cloud-slashing treasure manual and say that it can reach the enlightened mastery's boundary. You will soon become an enlightened master." Chu Li laughed. How vicious. If the cloud-slashing treasure manual could reach the Grandmaster's boundary, many people would be tempted. However, if it could reach the enlightened mastery, it would not be these people who were tempted. It would be the top Grandmasters who were bitterly pursuing the enlightened mastery's boundary. These people were difficult to deal with. The Grandmaster's boundary had reached its peak. It was impossible to obtain the enlightened mastery even if they begged for it. The desire in their hearts was 100 times stronger than those who wanted to reach the Grandmaster's boundary. Once such a rumor was spread, they would definitely come looking for him. Even if the heavenly demonic power was powerful against these old fellows who were close to perfecting the Grandmaster's boundary, even if he could defeat 1, 2, or even 3 or 4 of them, he might not be able to. He looked at Lu Yurong and frowned. "Are you hurt? Which one of them could hurt you?" This broken secret manual. Lu Yurong took out a thin yellow silk book from her sleeves and threw it on the table. This secret manual is really strange. It almost made me go astray. Chuli was surprised. He picked it up excitedly and flipped through it again. He shook his head and laughed. It's actually this powerful? Lu Yurong's martial arts mastery was profound, and she was knowledgeable. This hard technique could make her go astray. It was really not ordinary. Lu Yurong said, I think this is an incomplete manual. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and pondered. Lu Yurong said, it might not be a complete heart technique. Anyway, it's very strange. If this heart technique was complete, it might really be a top-notch antique study. Chu Li nodded. Could it really be a Clad slashing treasure manual? Lu Yurong was also exceptionally intelligent. Are you saying that there are several Clad slashing treasure manual? Chu Li said, it's highly possible. He then shook his head. I've always suspected that it was the Li dynasty's doing, but now it seems that all sorts of people have come out to cause trouble, adding to the chaos. I can't figure out who did it. Anyway, I don't dare to practice this hard technique anymore. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, why don't I just throw it out? Chu Li said, it's useless. No one will fall for it. Then you're in for it. Lu Yurong said, there won't be peace on your side. The High Duke's public house is slightly better, but sooner or later there will be trouble too. Chu Li furrowed his brows. Lu Yurong said, you started a massacre. You can hold them off for a while, but it won't last long. I don't believe it, Chu Li said. They're not afraid of death. They would rather die for the Clad slashing treasure manual. Lu Yurong said, especially a lot of grandmasters who have reached the end of their lives. No matter what, they would still fight for their juniors. How many of them can you kill? The Ji dynasty doesn't have many grandmasters, Chu Li said. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, that might not be the case. There are many hidden deep in the mountains and forests. Grandmasters have a long lifespan. I'll just kill whoever comes, Chu Li said. You're killing to your heart's content. Lu Yurong shook her head. But how many enemies will you make? These enemies are hiding in the dark and can bite you at any time. You'll have to suffer. Speaking of which, this rumor is simple and crude, but it's a vicious plan. Chu Li said, have you heard of Crouching Bull Mountain? He poured a glass of wine for Lu Yurong and passed it to her. Lu Yurong took the white jade glass. Her hand and the jade glass reflected each other. It was hard to tell which one was not white jade. Crouching Bull Mountain. Why did they offend you? How's the strength of Crouching Bull Mountain? What's their reputation like? Chu Li asked. They're considered a decent faction. Their strength is shocking, not inferior to the Green Hill. Lu Yurong took a sip of wine and said, what about the leader of the hill? The top master of the Grandmaster. He hasn't fought for many years. I don't know how strong he is. If you go up against him, you have to be careful. He might be able to kill you. Lu Yurong frowned. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. Lu Yurong scoffed. What do you have to do with Crouching Bull Mountain? That can't be. Crouching Bull Mountain is in the Ji public house. It's very far away. Chu Li said, what about the young lord of Crouching Bull Mountain? Zhuge Tian? I heard that he's also a genius, but he rarely leaves the mountain. Others don't know how strong he is. Looks like he has a grudge with this young lord. Lu Yurong sighed. Chu Li sighed. He covets Valley leader Mei from Taihua Valley. I'm guessing that he was the one who spread the rumor. Since he could spread one rumor, he could have spread two. I'm afraid that this rumor was also done by him. Since you know it's him, why are you still accusing me? Lu Yurong's face darkened. Chu Li smiled. You're the most suspicious. Lu Yurong glared at him, but she wasn't really angry. If it was her, she would also suspect him. It seems like this person is a sinister person. Do you want to kill him? Lu Yurong asked. She knew Chu Li's way of solving problems. It was always clean and efficient. Chu Li said, I have to get rid of him. Otherwise, he'll keep looking for trouble. He's also a genius. I have to be careful. Zhuge Tian wanted to take his life the moment he arrived. He even implicated the High Duke's public house. This was a taboo for him. He was different from the geniuses of the same generation like Fa Yuan and Lu Yurong. They were not bad people. They were just enemies because of different standpoints. Zhuge Tian's methods could be seen. He was a sinister person. He was like a poisonous snake. He had to be killed, or there would be endless trouble in the future. If you want to kill him, don't go into Crouching Bull Mountain. I think there are many grandmasters hidden there. A first-rate sect has a deep foundation. It's not something you can shake alone. Lu Yurong said. Chuli nodded slowly. Lu Yurong said, some of the old monsters live in seclusion and don't care about the world. They try their best to break through the enlightened mastery's boundary. They don't leave the mountain. But if someone goes in, they won't be polite. There's a huge difference between a second-rate sect and a first-rate sect. Chuli smiled. Lu Yurong scoffed. Don't think I'm joking. You've heard of many second-rate sects being destroyed. But have you ever heard of a first-rate sect being destroyed? Chuli nodded thoughtfully. It seemed like he couldn't just barge into Crouching Bull Mountain and kill him. Lu Yurong said, if you want to kill him, lure him out and kill him without anyone knowing. That makes sense. Chuli smiled. Lu Yurong said impatiently, both of us don't look like good people. We're working together to kill someone. Chapter 565. P.S. I can't believe a Silver Alliance leader appeared. I'm so grateful. Early in the morning, Zhuge Tian walked out of his house and stretched his body. He looked at the bright sunlight and exclaimed, what a great day. He closed his eyes and sighed. What a beautiful day. Qiao Sen waved his hand and ordered 2 maids to carry a young girl's corpse out of the house. He smiled and said, young lord, the news of Chuli obtaining the Cloud-slashing treasure manual has spread everywhere in the fairy's capital. I heard that more than 10 grandmasters broke into the imperial residence of King An last night. Zhuge Tian nodded and said, it's just a small trick. He'll suffer in the future. Let's see if he dies or not. Qiao San smiled and nodded. Young lord, you're so smart. I'm impressed. Zhuge Tian frowned and glared at him. Qiao San shut his mouth awkwardly. He knew that he did not flatter Zhuge Tian well. Zhuge Tian lay back on the rocking chair and rocked back and forth. And then, what do you mean? Qiao San was shocked. Zhuge Tian looked up at the blue sky and white clouds, bathing in the bright sunlight. More than 10 grandmasters broke into the imperial residence of King An, and nothing else happened? Qiao San hesitated and said helplessly, they're all dead. Zhuge Tian turned and looked at him. They were all killed by Chuli. Qiao San quickly said, oh, looks like he's quite capable. Zhuge Tian smiled. Yes, his martial arts is really powerful. I didn't expect him to be so capable. Qiao San shook his head and sighed. Zhuge Tian smiled and said, so what if he's powerful? If he could kill 10, how could he kill 20? The ones who started the fight were all low-level fighters. The masters won't attack easily. Yes, young lord is wise. Qiao San quickly said. Are you afraid? Zhuge Tian asked. Qiao San forced a smile. Yes, I'm a coward. I didn't expect Chu Li to be so powerful. What if he finds out that we spread the news? Will he come after us? So what if he comes after us? Do you think he can go against the Crouching Bull Mountain? Also, how is he going to find out? What a coward. Qiao San smiled in embarrassment. Yes, he won't be able to find out. Zhuge Tian said, all right, don't worry. He can't even take care of himself now. He doesn't have time to think about anything else. It should be enough to deter the others, Qiao San said hurriedly. I'm afraid the others won't dare to act recklessly. The more he acts like this, the more unlucky he'll be. Zhuge Tian smiled faintly. The more powerful he is, the more powerful the Cloud-slashing treasure manual is, and the greater the temptation is. Can those top-notch masters resist it? What a joke. Young master is wise. Qiao San praised. A maid carefully walked in. Young master, Chief Qiao, there's a messenger at the foot of the mountain. Who is the letter for? Qiao San looked at the maidservant solemnly. The maid said, it's for young master. He said that he wants to present it to young master in person. Who sent it? Qiao San frowned and looked at Zhuge Tian. Zhuge Tian smiled. Only for me to see. Interesting. He had only gone down the mountain twice and met Mei Aoshuang. Other than that, he had never interacted with anyone else. He had only traveled around, seen the ways of the world, understood people's hearts, and never delved too deeply into it. For someone to deliver a letter to him under such circumstances, it was inexplicably strange. The maid shook her head. That person didn't say. He said that he wants to present it to young master personally. You'll know once you read the letter. Interesting. Xiao-san, go and take a look. Zhuge Tian smiled. Yes, Xiao-san replied. Xiao-san did not take the small path. He stepped on the treetops and descended. The towering ancient trees covered the sky. He looked as small as an ant when he stepped on them. When he arrived at the foot of the mountain, he saw an ordinary-looking, skinny young man standing there with his back hunched, looking left and right. He was leading a gray horse. His hair and the horse's fur were both gray. He looked extremely down and out. It was obvious that he had been defeated by life at such a young age. Xiao-san frowned and landed in front of the young man. The skinny young man was shocked. He quickly closed fists, saluted. Xiao-san scoffed. Who are you? I'm Hierwa. I was ordered by a fairy to deliver a letter to young Master Zhuge. I want to present the letter to young Master Zhuge in person. Fairy? What does she look like? Xiao-san frowned. Hierwa replied. She looked like a fairy from a painting. No one would dare to look at her for too long. I only took a glance, and the fairy said that young Master Zhuge would know who she is when he reads the letter. She said that her surname is May, Fairy May. May? Xiao-san was shocked. He extended his hand. Where's the letter? Hierwa quickly covered his chest and shook his head. I want to present it to young Master Zhuge personally. You little brat, you can't meet the young master just because you want to. Xiao-san scoffed. I don't care. I promised the fairy that I would present the letter to young Master Zhuge personally. If I can't meet young Master Zhuge, I can't present the letter. Hierwa said, Brat, I'll kill you. Xiao-san raised his hand. Hierwa shouted, I won't give you the letter even if you kill me. Heh, you're so stubborn. All right, I'll spare your life for Fairy May's sake. Let's go. Xiao-san sneered. He could tell that Hierwa did not know any martial arts. He grabbed him by the collar and flew up to the top of the ancient tree. Hierwa shuddered in fear and quickly closed his eyes. Xiao-san released some of his inner energy to check on Hierwa's body. He realized that Hierwa did not have any inner energy, but his meridians were wide and strong. He was a martial arts genius. Xiao-san was shocked. He looked at the skinny kid from head to toe and sighed. He could not judge a book by its cover. Such an inconspicuous kid had such great potential. If he was properly trained, he would definitely become a master. Xiao-san's mind raced, and he had a murderous intention. He could not let such a person live. Young people were powerful, but how could an old man like him live? If he brought him to Crouching Bull Mountain, he would become a top-notch master, and Xiao-san would have to bow down to him. There would be one less person like him if he died. The more the better. Then, Xiao-san's life would be more carefree. Despite his murderous intention, Xiao-san's face turned gentle. He smiled and asked, Where did you see Fairy May? Hierwa tried his best to open his eyes. The wind blew against his face, and his hair danced wildly. He shouted, I saw her at Steel Bull Ridge. Only Fairy May? There were 2 other fairies. What did Fairy May say? Fairy May only asked me to deliver the letter to Master Zhuge and to stay at Crouching Bull Mountain. Xiao-san's murderous intention grew. He smiled and said, You can't stay at Crouching Bull Mountain anymore. I'll give you 100 taels of silver later as compensation. What do you think? 100 taels of silver? Hierwa's eyes widened. Xiao-san smiled and nodded. Are you satisfied? Is there really 100 taels of silver? Hierwa asked. Xiao-san said, I'm a man of my word. I'll give it to you now. Don't mention it later. As he spoke, he took out a banknote and handed it to Hierwa. Hierwa held it tightly, as he was afraid that it would be blown away by the strong wind. He stared at the 100 taels of silver and nodded. Are you really giving it to me? Chapter 566. Hierwa kept the note in his pocket and held it tightly, afraid that it would be blown away by the wind. His face was full of longing. Xiao-san shook his head. What a pity. It was better for him to live such a lowly life. He would kill him when he sent him down the mountain later. Irwa pressed his chest and said, "But Goddess May said that she would see how I am the next time she comes. Will I be able to see her again?" Xiao San frowned. Goddess May said that she mentioned this? Irwa chuckled. She said that I am a simple person and suitable for training. Crouching Bull Mountain is a first-rate faction. I will definitely become a master there. Xiao San laughed and looked at him. Good boy, you're very cunning. Irwa looked at him confusedly and blinked. Xiao San shook his head. He felt that it was not necessarily cunning, but pure. He was too lazy to ask for the note back. He did not care about the 100 taels of silver. To him, it was the same as 10 taels of silver. His young lord's silver was his silver. His young lord never asked how much money he had or how much he spent. The two of them floated to the mountainside and entered Zhuge Tian's courtyard. Zhuge Tian was lying lazily on a chair, looking at the blue sky. Young lord, this is the messenger. Valley leader May really knows how to pick people. Xiao San put Irwa down and smiled. Oh, Zhuge Tian smiled and waved his hand. Come quickly. Irwa walked to him curiously. Are you Master Zhuge? I am Zhuge Tian. Give me the letter. Zhuge Tian glanced at him. All right. Irwa took out a letter and passed it to Zhuge Tian with both hands. Xiao San grinned. Irwa's clothes must be very dirty. Luckily, his young lord did not care. Zhuge Tian opened the letter and glanced at it. He chuckled and shook his head. Young lord, is this a letter from Valley Leader May? I don't know. I haven't seen her writing either, but it looks like a woman's handwriting. Zhuge Tian scoffed. Xiao San was confused. What's the matter? Is it about meeting you? Zhuge Tian said, based on Mei Aoshuang's arrogance, which she asked me to meet her. That's true. Xiao San hesitated. What is it then? Zhuge Tian pointed at Irwa and said, it's because of this young man. They said that he is extremely talented and can be considered a good talent, so they sent him to the Crouching Bull Mountain. Valley Master May has good intentions. Xiao San nodded. Young Master, this young man is indeed talented. Crouching Bull Mountain accepts people with good qualifications. Zhuge Tian sneered. Crouching Bull Mountain is not a place where just anyone can enter. Exactly, Xiao San hurriedly said, but Valley Leader May has written a letter. If we don't agree, I'm afraid it'll be hard to explain to Valley Leader May. After all, we have to respect Valley Leader May, right? If this was in the past, of course, I would give her face. But now, Zhuge Tian scoffed. She is no longer the woman I want. Naturally, I don't have to care about her request. Just kill this brat. Xiao San was pleasantly surprised. Kill him? Yes. Zhuge Tian nodded. Xiao San smiled. Young master, that's not a good idea. Zhuge Tian glared at him. You can't wait to kill him, but you're pretending to be unwilling. Do you know how happy you are? Xiao San laughed. I can't hide anything from you, young master. Just kill him. Do it now. Kill him in front of me. Zhuge Tian said. Yes. Xiao San agreed immediately. He looked at Irwa and said, Young man, you're out of luck. You met the wrong person. If Valley Leader May didn't meddle, you wouldn't have fallen into our hands. Irwa was confused. Goddess May said she'll be here in a few days. She's coming. Zhuge Tian frowned. Irwa quickly said, Yes. Goddess May said she's coming to see me. She wants to see if I can get used to it. If I'm not used to it, she'll take me away. Zhuge Tian seemed to be deep in thought. Xiao San panicked and said, Young master, let's kill him first. He raised his palm and slammed it towards Irwa's skull. Hold on, Zhuge Tian said lazily. Xiao San's palm was 2 inches away from Irwa. Irwa's hair was moving up and down. He was so scared that he could not move. His face was as white as a sheet. Zhuge Tian chuckled and shook his head. Look at how scared you are. Xiao San asked. Young master, are we really going to keep him alive? Since Mei Aoshuang is coming, let's wait for her. Zhuge Tian said. Xiao San asked. What if Valley Leader May lie to him? She wouldn't lie to a young man. Just let him stay in the woodshed. He doesn't need a mouth. Don't let him wander around, and don't let the people in the sect find him. Zhuge Tian waved his hand lazily. Yes, young master is kind. Chowson closed fists saluted helplessly. He could not hide his disappointment. He loved killing these kinds of geniuses. He was excited and felt a sense of accomplishment as if he had killed a top-notch master. If nothing went wrong, these people would become top-notch masters in the future. Zhuge Tian said, treat him well. Don't mistreat him. I want to ask Mei Ao Shuang in person what relationship she has with Chu Li. Give her a chance to explain. Yes, Qiao San said. He waved his hand. Let's go, follow me. Hierwa closed fists saluted Zhuge Tian and smiled. He quickly followed Qiao San. Qiao San brought him to a woodshed in the courtyard. You will stay here. Don't leave the courtyard. I will bring you food. If someone knocks on the door, don't answer. If someone comes in, hide. Okay. When do I start learning martial arts? Irwa nodded. We'll wait for the next time Fairy May comes, Qiao San said. Oh. Irwa was disappointed. Qiao San scoffed. Not everyone can learn martial arts. Don't worry. You will learn eventually. He smiled mockingly. Irwa smiled at him. Thank you, senior. Remember not to leave this courtyard. Don't blame me if you get killed. Qiao San shook his head. Yes. Irwa nodded. Qiao San glared at him and flew back to the backyard on the mountainside. Zhuge Tian looked at him and asked, how was he? He's an idiot, Qiao San said. Are you sure you want to keep him alive? A few more days. If Mei Ao Shuang really had an affair with Chu Li, then kill them both. If they have nothing to do with each other and it's just a rumor, then keep him alive. Zhuge Tian said. Yes. I didn't expect Mei Ao Shuang to come personally. Interesting. Qiao San smiled. This is fate. Do I really have to kill the woman I love with my own hands? Zhuge Tian looked at the blue sky and sighed. Qiao San did not interrupt. Zhuge Tian sighed. If I knew this was going to happen, I wouldn't have spread the rumor. I don't want her to get killed. Qiao San nodded. Why don't we make another rumor and say that someone else got the secret manual? No need. Zhuge Tian waved his hand. We can only do it once or twice, but not 3 or 4 times. It won't be good if someone finds out. Let nature take its course and see what happens to her. Chapter 567. Here was sat in the woodshed with his eyes closed. Everything within a 5-mile radius was in his mind. He made a bed out of wood and sat on it with his legs crossed. Hierwa was Chu Li in disguise. Since Zhuge Tian wanted to kill him, he would not sit still and wait for Zhuge Tian to come to him. He would go to him first. Killing Zhuge Tian would lure Zhuge Feng out. Zhuge Feng's cultivation level was high, and Chu Li did not know. He wanted to test the waters first. Crouching Bull Mountain was a first-rate sect. He was curious about how strong they were. He disguised himself as Irwa and entered Crouching Bull Mountain to hide his martial arts. Even a master like Hai Duke Lu would not notice. He thought that if he wanted to kill Zhuge Tian, it would be best if no one would suspect him to avoid Crouching Bull Mountain's revenge. If that did not work, he could use Tempest Temple's martial arts or Amethyst Mountain's martial arts to kill him. Crouching Bull Mountain would not dare to investigate if the 2 sects were blamed. As his heavenly demonic power progressed, he could change his appearance. He always wanted to try it out. Now he had the chance. He took a deep breath and shook his head. After getting closer to Zhuge Tian, he realized that he made the right decision. He was so careful. Zhuge Tian was hiding his strength. His cultivation level was higher than his. Even if he used the heavenly demonic power, he might not be able to defeat him. His slender, thin, and somewhat scholarly body contained an extremely tyrannical power. If he wanted to kill him silently, he might not be able to kill him and be killed instead. There were only 6 masters in Crouching Bull Mountain. It did not seem like a lot, but their cultivation levels were very high. They were all at the same level as Chun Kong. Chu Li could handle 2 or 3 of them, but he had no chance of winning against 6. In a cave at the top of the mountain, a purple-robed elder was in seclusion. His aura was shocking. His cultivation level was comparable to the Hai Duke Lu public house. He was 2 levels higher than Zhuge Tian. Chu Li was no match for him. Chu Li opened his eyes and pondered. The surpassing state was not here. It should be somewhere else. On the evening of the third day, Xiao San hurried to the courtyard. Young Lord, bad news. I heard that Tai Hua Valley was breached. Valley leader Mei died in battle. Xiao San came to a stop. Zhuge Tian stood up abruptly. Xiao San said, I just received news that Tai Hua Valley has been found. It's not within the borders of the Yi public house. It's within the borders of the Ren public house. Valley leader Mei has died in battle, and all the female disciples of Tai Hua Valley have died in battle. How is that possible? Zhuge Tian frowned. She is a grandmaster. Once a grandmaster activated his secret skill, its power would be astonishing. If he wanted to escape, almost no one would be able to stop him unless a few other grandmasters activated their secret skills without any regard for their lives. Xiao San shook his head. I don't know about that. Who killed her? Zhuge Tian's face turned cold. Xiao San sighed. I think she's the lady of the Ren public house. Lu Yurong. Zhuge Tian laughed coldly. I like to meet her. If Mei Aoshuang is no good, I'll take her. I didn't expect her to. She shook her head. Xiao San said, I didn't expect Valley Master Mei to die in the prime of her life. He glanced at Zhuge Tian carefully. The young lord changed his mind. He originally wanted to kill her, but now he wanted to give her a chance. He wanted to ask her face to face if she had anything to do with Chu Li. If she had nothing to do with him, the two of them might really become a couple. Valley Master Mei actually wrote a letter and sent someone she thought highly of. This meant that she was not heartless towards the young lord. Through this young man, the two of them would be able to contact each other frequently. She might even become the young lord's wife. Unfortunately, Mei Aoshuang did not have this fate. She died before she could even meet the young lord. Sigh. The key point was that her death was because of the news released by the young lord. He had to be careful if the young lord would be upset and vent his anger on him. Zhuge Tian sighed. He paced around the small courtyard with his hands behind his back. His handsome face was gloomy. Young lord, the dead cannot come back to life. Since Valley leader Mei is dead, there's no point in thinking about it, Xiao San said softly. Zhuge Tian shouted, Shut up. Xiao San quickly shut his mouth and bowed. Zhuge Tian stared at him and scoffed. Are you happy now? Xiao San shook his head. Zhuge Tian laughed coldly. Don't hide it from me. I know you must be happy. You must think that I brought this upon myself. I came up with my own idea, and in the end, I killed her, right? Isn't that right? With every sentence he spoke, he took a step forward and got closer. Xiao San did not dare to step back. He only shook his head. Zhuge Tian was so close to him that his breath touched his face. He stared at his face carefully, as if trying to read his thoughts. Xiao San carefully held his breath and did not dare to show any strange expression. Otherwise, he would be in big trouble. Zhuge Tian took a deep breath and took 2 steps back. He looked at him. Do you think I'm a joke? Young lord, there's no such thing. I plan to kill her anyway. Now that she's dead, you can get rid of the knot in your heart. You can find another woman in peace. I heard that the lady of the Ren public house is smart and smart. She's a good match for you. Lu Yurong. Zhuge Tian smiled. Yes, I heard that she was beautiful. Unfortunately, the most beautiful woman in the great Ji dynasty married Kingen. I shouldn't have hesitated. I should have snatched her away. Yes, the most beautiful woman in the great Ji dynasty. It would be great if I could snatch her back. Only the most beautiful woman in the great Ji dynasty is a good match for you. Xiao San smiled. I shouldn't have hesitated. Zhuge Tian scoffed and returned to his chair. He looked up at the sky, full of colorful clouds. But I heard that Lu Yurong is not bad either. She's not any worse than the most beautiful woman in the great Ji dynasty. It's good to have her. I think so. She's in the fairies' capital now. Young lord, do you want to go see her? Xiao San nodded. Forget it. It's not time yet. I'll wait until Chu Li is at his wit's end. Then I'll go and deal him a fatal blow. That'll be more interesting. Yes, killing him with my own hands will relieve the hatred in my heart. Xiao San quickly said. Xiao San looked at him carefully. Oh, right. Valley Leader Mei's body is in the Mercy Temple. He paused and said slowly, Young lord, do you want to take a look at her? Sai, it's good to go. Xiao San sighed. Young lord, you really are a passionate person. Zhuge Tian stared at him. Xiao San shut his mouth awkwardly. Let's go. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Zhuge Tian looked at the sunset. Xiao San answered honestly, yes. The two of them glided out of the courtyard and went down the mountain. They stepped on the branches of the ancient trees and looked like two red clouds descending under the sunset. When they were about to reach the foot of the mountain, they suddenly heard an angry roar, followed by the sound of metal clashing. The two of them were stunned. Xiao San turned to look at Zhuge Tian. Zhuge Tian frowned. Let's go and take a look. Xiao San scoffed. Why would there be a fight at the foot of the mountain? The two of them walked towards the sound of metal clashing. Soon, they saw a person lying on the ground. The person was not moving and their face could not be seen. Xiao San quickly said, Young lord, I'll go and take a look. Zhuge Tian said carelessly, It's not like we're anywhere else. This is Crouching Bull Mountain. There's no need to be so cautious. He then walked towards the silhouette under the tree. Chapter 568. Young lord, Xiao San turned around and shouted. Young lord, he suddenly realized that Zhuge Tian was nowhere to be seen. There was only himself and the ancient tree in front of him. Zhuge Tian and the person from before were nowhere to be seen. Young lord, don't joke with me, Xiao San said. There was not a single sound in the surroundings. Young lord, we still have to continue on our way. We can't fool around. Let's go, Xiao San said. He looked around and realized that he was standing in a different place from before. It was as if he had lost track of time in his mind and could not remember how he came to this place. Xiao San shouted, Young lord. He realized that something was wrong, and his voice became weaker. He rubbed his ears and screamed a few times. He realized that his voice had indeed become weaker. His ears seemed to be damaged. He could not hear anything clearly, and everything he heard was weak. The world around him was extremely quiet, as if he had become deaf. Usually, with his strong inner energy, he could hear the sound of the wind as if it was right next to his ears. He could even hear the sound of insects crawling within a 3-meter radius. But now it was completely different. It was as if something was blocking his ears and blocking his hearing. Young lord, he screamed. Usually, his scream would have been heard by the entire Crouching Bull Mountain. He listened carefully. His scream was soft and could not be loud. It was as if something was blocking his mouth and throat. Young lord, Xiao San channeled his inner energy to his throat and screamed. The surroundings were still dead silent. His screams were similar to when he was speaking loudly in the past. He frowned and looked around. It was getting stranger. Finally, he came up with a stupid idea. He went to an ancient tree and hit it with both his palms. He wanted to make a loud noise, but it was too soft to travel far. Logically speaking, the young lord should have been able to hear him. With his inner energy, he could have heard him clearly if he had spoken a little louder. He shook his head and finally leaped onto the treetop to look around. It was a vast forest. He could not see the end of it. All he could see were the same ancient trees. If it was not for the setting sun, he would not have been able to tell where he was going. He leaped towards the direction of the setting sun and used his qin gong to travel quickly. His speed was extremely fast, but after running for a quarter of an hour, he realized that he was still in the same place. So he floated down and made a mark on the ground before he floated back up the tree and sped away. After running for a quarter of an hour, he came down again. The marks on the ground told him that he was still in the same place. He had clearly run very far away. So why did that mark seem to be running with him and was still there? He suddenly slapped his head, and his expression changed slightly. Array formation. He recalled the miraculous methods of the legends. It was said that formation masters were almost extinct. There was one in the Tempest Temple and one in the Imperial House. Other than them, there were no other formation masters in the world. What ability did he have that he needed an array master to deal with him? He shook his head and smiled bitterly. He continued to run for another 2 hours before landing on the ground in a dispirited manner. He looked at the marks on the ground and racked his brains for a solution. Suddenly, he channeled his internal energy into his palms and slapped a tree. A clear palm print appeared. After slapping one tree, he slapped another. As long as he walked towards the unmarked tree, no matter how many trees there were in the forest, he would be able to slap them all. Haha, he was indeed smart. Although this was a stupid method, it was also the most effective one. He actually had such a good idea in a flash. One tree, two trees, three trees. In one breath, he slapped more than 20 trees. He looked up and saw that the sky was about to turn dark. He turned his head to look at his surroundings, and his expression changed. The marks on the ground were still there. He had not walked out yet. He turned his head to look at the trees around him. The palm print that he had slapped just now had disappeared. It was as if there was a strange power that erased his palm print and returned it to its original state. Was this the power of the array formation? It was indeed powerful. He gritted his teeth and slapped down on a tree again and again, concentrating on one tree. Unfortunately, the bark did not fly off as he had imagined. No matter how hard he slapped, only a palm print would appear on the tree. When he slapped down again, the original palm print would disappear, leaving only a palm print on the tree. When he stopped for a while, the palm print on the tree would also slowly disappear. He suddenly felt a sense of despair. He was doing something useless and struggling in vain. No, he could not give up. If he was really trapped here, who could teach him? He was afraid that the young lord was also trapped. He would definitely be able to escape. He felt that there was a limit to how much palm power a tree could withstand. If he slapped it repeatedly, the tree would eventually collapse. He slapped down again and again until the sky turned dark. He was exhausted. After the sky turned dark, a bright moon hung in the sky, allowing him to identify the direction. However, he knew that it was useless. It was a pity that he did not bring a sword. If he did, he would definitely chop down all the trees. He then sighed. His palm power was not any weaker than a sword. He could not do anything to these trees, even if he had a sword. Was he going to be trapped like this? Was he going to starve to death or die of thirst? That would be terrible. He did not know how the young lord was doing. The young lord was as powerful as a spiritual beast. The array formation might not be able to trap him. He would definitely be able to save him. Thinking about this, he smiled and sat down on the ground, panting heavily. After Zhuge Tian realized that he was trapped in the array, he did not rush to move. He stood quietly and listened. He channeled his energy to his ears and heard the sound of the wind. He wanted to determine where he was from the sound of the wind and what was around him from the smell. Suddenly, a figure flashed in front of him. It was standing 20 feet away. He looked at the person in front of him. He was dressed in a white robe and looked handsome. He was about 20 years old and was looking at him calmly. "Who are you?" Zhuge Tian asked lazily and looked down at him. Chu Li said, "Chu Li, it's you?" Zhuge Tian smiled and looked at him. "I didn't expect you to come looking for me." Chu Li shook his head. "What martial arts do you cultivate?" "Oh, the antique study of the crouching bull mountain." Zhuge Tian smiled. "The cloud slashing treasure manual? Did you destroy it or hide it somewhere?" Chu Li frowned. Zhuge Tian's expression changed slightly. His gaze became sharp and pierced towards Chu Li like two swords. Chu Li said, "You were the one who spread the rumor that I obtained the cloud slashing treasure manual, right?" "That's right." Zhuge Tian's gaze was like a sword, but he had a faint smile on his face. "How about it? Just a little trick, and you're done for." Chu Li shook his head. "That's good too. At least I found the cloud slashing treasure manual." "Huh? You think you found the cloud slashing treasure manual?" Zhuge Tian laughed. Chu Li said, "It's with you." "Interesting. How interesting." Zhuge Tian laughed. "You really know how to indulge in the wildest fantasies. I've obtained the cloud slashing treasure manual." "Haha." Chu Li looked at him calmly. "You want to harm me because of Mei Ao Shuang? Looks like Lu Chuan betrayed me. They're not the same kind of people." Zhuge Tian frowned. Chapter 569. Very good. Zhuge Tian looked at him coldly. "You're quite famous. I've always wanted to meet you, but I didn't expect you to find me first. You're really digging your own grave. Today, I'll send you to hell." Chu Li could not help but laugh. What big words. If the cloud-slashing treasure manual is really that miraculous, are you going to become an enlightened master? Enlightened master? Zhuge Tian chuckled. Hee. So what if he's an enlightened master? As soon as he finished speaking, he pressed his palm forward. Suddenly, Chu Li saw a palm force condensing 3 inches in front of him. It condensed in an instant and attacked him. It was as if it had broken through the shackles of space. It was extremely strange and unavoidable. He didn't dodge. He wanted to test the power of this palm. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and a purple-golden luster flashed on the surface of his body. His chest was hit by a hammer, and he slid back 10 feet. Good palm energy, Chu Li praised. The heavenly demonic orb instantly rotated and absorbed the palm energy. This palm energy was extremely pure and contained a devouring power. Wherever it passed, inner energy would be absorbed, which was similar to the heavenly demonic orb. The heavenly demonic orb was more powerful as it instantly devoured the strange palm energy. Chu Li heaved a sigh of relief. If it were not for the existence of the heavenly demonic orb, he would have had a headache whenever he encountered this kind of palm energy. No matter how deep his inner energy was, he would not be able to withstand this snowball-like devouring. The palm energy would only become stronger and stronger, and he would not be able to withstand it in the end. Again, Zhuge Tian saw that he only took a step back and was not injured. He smiled faintly and said, "You do have some skills. It seems like your reputation is not just for show." Chu Li frowned at him. Zhuge Tian clapped his palm lightly, and another palm energy condensed in front of Chu Li's chest. Chu Li dodged sideways and barely avoided the attack. What a great body movement! Zhuge Tian chuckled. He extended both of his palms and pushed them horizontally. Once again, Chu Li moved a foot to the side to avoid the palm energy. However, these 2 palm energies were able to change directions and instantly approach him again. Chu Li's inner energy surged, and he moved sideways again. The palm energy arrived again, and he moved sideways again. The palm force seemed to have come to life as it chased after him relentlessly. Its speed was extremely fast, as though it could traverse through space. It was comparable to Qin Wentian's movement technique. For a moment, Qin Wentian was unable to shake it off unless he used God's limbs. He didn't want to use his God's feet yet, and wanted to hide it for a final strike. Bang! Another palm force joined in as well, attacking him from the front and back. In the end, he was unable to evade it. A purplish-golden brilliance flashed across his body, and he took a solid hit from the palm. An incomparably pure palm force once again poured into his body. The heavenly demonic orb had been waiting there for a long time. Before it could devour the inner energy, the heavenly demonic orb had instantly devoured it. You're cultivating the sentient menace? Zhuge Tian frowned. It looks like it. Chu Li asked, what palm energy is that? How about the crouching bull palm? Zhuge Tian asked calmly. Chu Li scoffed. What a crouching bull palm. It's really a good martial art. However, he could read from Zhuge Tian's mind that it was the cloud-slashing palm. This was a unique study that specialized in restraining grandmasters. It would appear in front of the opponent in an instant, leaving almost no chance for the opponent to dodge. Even the warning signs would be useless. If one's palm strength was strong enough, one strike would be enough to injure the opponent. If one's palm strength was not as strong, one could also catch the opponent off guard and successfully launch a sneak attack, injuring the opponent and defeating the stronger opponent. Zhuge Tian said, to be able to withstand 2 crouching bull palms, it should be the sentient menace. What's your relationship with the Tempest Temple? No comment. Chu Li shook his head. How did you get the cloud-slashing treasure manual? I didn't get the cloud-slashing treasure manual. Don't try to frame me. Zhuge Tian shook his head. He was trying to prevent others from watching. If word of this got out, he would not have a good life. You dare to do it, but you don't dare to admit it. You have a strong martial art, but you're useless. You can only hide in the mountains and waste your time, not daring to go out and explore. Chu Li shook his head. Hee, your provocation doesn't work. No matter what, I can't get the cloud-slashing treasure manual out of thin air. How did you get it? Zhuge Tian laughed. Chu Li secretly cursed him for being cunning and shook his head. If that's the case, I'll have a taste of your antique study. He dashed towards Zhuge Tian like a ghost. In an instant, he was in front of him and attacked with a Shura palm. Zhuge Tian curled his lips in disdain. He had already seen through Chu Li's cultivation level. It was far weaker than his and was nothing to worry about. Hence, he took the attack head-on. A cold inner energy entered his body and immediately turned into a scorching heat. Zhuge Tian snorted indifferently. His inner energy flowed and immediately engulfed the palm energy, turning it into his own inner energy. This was the power of the cloud slashing power. Inner energy had the ability to engulf as if it was alive. It could engulf all the inner energy that rushed into the body. Not only did it not harm the body, but it also strengthened the body. When he fought with others, he would always engulf the opponent's inner energy to strengthen himself. No matter how strong the opponent was, as long as he could hold on for a while, he would be able to turn the tables and win. For those who were weaker than him, the opponent would become weaker while he would become stronger. He could easily take them down. Every time he fought, he would turn the opponent's inner energy into his own. He would become stronger while the opponent would become weaker. It would not be easy to lose. After a fight, the remaining inner energy that had not been used up would be turned into his own through the circulatory cycle. His cultivation level would increase. This way, it was extremely easy to cultivate. He did not need to sit down and cultivate for months and years. He only needed to fight a few battles, and he would become a top-notch master. Chu Li frowned and looked at the situation in his body. He always thought that the heavenly demonic power was powerful enough. He did not expect the cloud slashing power to be even more evil. It could directly engulf and strengthen itself, turning it into its own inner energy. It was even more direct and overbearing than the heavenly demonic power. The heavenly demonic orb was strengthened through engulfing, but it would not directly turn it into his own usable inner energy. However, the cloud slashing power could directly turn it into something he could use. He felt that the heavenly demonic power was more stable, but the cloud slashing power was more overbearing and powerful. Chu Li suddenly activated the infinite azure sea and stacked it layer by layer. Then he swung his arm. Swoosh! A cold light pierced through the twilight and instantly appeared in front of Zhuge Tian. Zhuge Tian tilted his body to avoid it. Chu Li frowned. Zhuge Tian's body movement technique and reaction were extremely fast. The flying blade was useless in front of him. He was indeed a troublesome person. He had no choice but to use the heavenly demonic power. Take this. Zhuge Tian stepped in front of Chu Li. The long sword on his waist was unsheathed and turned into a flash of light. Chu Li was alarmed, reminding him to avoid the sword. Ding! A clear sound was heard. Chu Li's modesty sword collided with Zhuge Tian's. Swoosh! The tip of the sword suddenly appeared in front of his throat. Chu Li tried his best to avoid the sword. The sword was so fast that other people's eyes could not follow it. He had to rely on the omniscient mirror to avoid it. Swoosh! Swoosh! Chi! Amidst the soft whistling sound, it was as if clothes were being torn apart, but the tip of the sword pierced through the air. The tip of the sword was right in front of his throat. No matter how Chu Li used his footwork to avoid it, the tip of the sword followed him closely. It was shockingly fast. The 7 forms of godly sword were exquisite and powerful. However, in front of such a fast sword technique, it felt clumsy. Every sword seemed to be able to break free from the restraints of space, not giving him time to dodge. Chapter 570. P.S. Update complete. Everyone is working hard. I need to work hard too. Once I finish updating, I can have a good night's sleep. Ding! Chu Li placed the modesty sword in front of his throat to block the tip of Zhuge Tian's sword. A powerful force came from the sword, forcing him to take a step back. The modesty sword was stuck to Zhuge Tian's sword tightly. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free. A strange inner energy passed through the modesty sword and turned into a strange sticky force. Even if he let go, the modesty sword was still in his hand and he could not break free. Another streak of weird internal strength entered his body and swallowed his internal strength. It transformed and became stronger and stronger, and the rate at which it swallowed became faster and faster. Chuli scoffed. He wanted to see if Zhuge Tian could kill him. Spiritual energy from all directions rushed in and turned into his inner energy. His inner energy was devoured in the blink of an eye and turned into Zhuge Tian's inner energy. Zhuge Tian held the sword and smiled coldly. This Chuli in front of him did have some skills. His invincible and unstoppable sword technique was actually blocked by Chu Li. He truly lived up to his reputation. Chu Li's sword technique must be extremely shocking. However, Zhuge Tian was stronger. Other than the cloud slashing sword technique, Zhuge Tian also had the cloud slashing power. With the two combined, if the sword technique could not kill Chu Li, he could use his inner energy to devour and destroy his body, killing him instantly. Zhuge Tian frowned as he realized something was wrong. Chu Li's inner energy was surprisingly strong. Although it was being devoured, it showed no signs of drying up. If it was someone else, their inner energy would have dried up long ago and they would be at Zhuge Tian's mercy. His inner energy kept growing, but Zhuge Tian was hesitant. He did not know if he should retract it immediately to prevent himself from losing control. However, he was reluctant to do so. After devouring such a strong inner energy, his cultivation level would improve. Even if he could not catch up to his father, he would not be too far behind. If he could catch up to his father, no one would listen to his words in Crouching Bull Mountain. He could finally hold his head high. Spiritual energy from all directions kept flowing in. Chu Li looked at Zhuge Tian. The two of them stood still with their swords in their hands. They were competing with their inner energy. Zhuge Tian's inner energy continued to grow, but slowly it started to show signs of losing control. He was slightly shocked and started to withdraw his inner energy. He planned to use his inner energy to break Chu Li's heart meridian after he withdrew it. He could not bear to use this inner energy to attack Chu Li. After Chu Li died, this inner energy would disappear as well. It would not be able to return to his body in time and could not truly transform into his own cultivation level. Out of greed, he began to move his inner energy back. Chu Li let out a sigh of relief. He turned his heavenly demonic orb and instantly devoured the inner energy. Zhuge Tian's expression changed drastically. He had actually helped Chu Li. Chu Li suddenly threw the modesty sword. Zhuge Tian was still in shock and could not dodge in time. The tip of the sword pierced his shoulder, but he managed to move it away from his chest at the crucial moment. Chu Li sighed in his heart and thrust his sword again. He did not dare to disperse the heavenly demonic orb and transform it into the heavenly demon body. Without the heavenly demonic orb, he would not be able to deal with the cloud slashing power. Zhuge Tian's sword gleamed as he performed the cloud slashing sword technique. Ding, 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 ding. The sword gleamed like lightning. Both of their swords were extremely fast. Chu Li frowned. He could not transform into the heavenly demonic body. Even though he had stacked the 5 levels of the infinite Azure Sea and the 7 forms of godly sword, he was still not as fast as the cloud slashing sword technique. The cloud slashing sword technique was truly powerful. Swoosh! Chu Li barely avoided the sword that was aimed at his throat. All of his antique studies were inferior to Chu Li. His body technique was extremely fast, his sword technique was extremely fast, and his inner energy was overbearing. Fortunately, he had the omniscient mirror and the life and death scripture, so he could barely hold on. If it was someone else with a similar cultivation level as him, they would have died under his sword or his cloud slashing power. Chu Li suddenly pointed at him with a petrifying finger. The petrifying finger successfully hit him. Puff! Half of Chu Li's inner energy instantly disappeared. He was slightly happy. The power of the petrifying finger was devoured by Zhuge Tian in an instant. It disappeared without a trace like a clay ox entering the sea. It did not slow him down at all. Instead, Jugetion's inner energy increased tremendously and his sword attacks became even faster. Chuli saw that the situation was not good and shot another flying blade. Ding! The flying blade was easily deflected by the sword. Chuli frowned and suddenly took 2 steps back. He quickly took 7 steps and then suddenly disappeared in front of Jugetion. Jugetion hurried forward and almost caught up with Chu Li's shadow. He was only 1 step away. He looked down at Chu Li's footprints and copied him to take 7 steps. Unfortunately, he was still in the same place as before. There was no change. He stepped on the treetops and flew under the moonlight. After running for a while, he looked down and saw that he was still in the same place as before. He was just spinning. He knew that he was trapped in a formation, but he did not expect Chu Li to know about formations. Chu Li suddenly appeared in a small courtyard halfway up the mountain. He went to the woodshed in the courtyard, opened the floor under the bed, and entered the cellar. The cellar was not big. It was only about 10 steps in size. There was a shelf in the stone cellar with a few items on it. At the top was a purple box that was glowing. Chu Li smiled and went forward to open the box. There was a thin booklet inside. There were 4 small words written on the booklet. They were written neatly. Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual. It looked like the words were written by someone who did not know how to write. It was a little clumsy and did not look impressive. Seeing these 4 words would make people doubt whether this was the real Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual. Chu Li flipped through the pages. Each page was a sword technique, and it was the Cloud Slashing Sword Technique. The Cloud Slashing Sword Technique did not seem to be exquisite to him. There was only one word for it: fast. It was fast to the extreme. It was shockingly fast and beyond imagination. The word fast was enough to put him at a disadvantage. No matter how exquisite the 7 forms of godly sword was, he was always slower than Chu Li. He was forced to not be able to finish performing it, and could only change his move halfway, completely suppressing the 7 forms of godly sword. After the Cloud Slashing Sword Technique was a page of heart technique. There was nothing else. Chu Li frowned. Could it be that this secret manual was also incomplete? Was it not related to the mystery of enlightened masters? There was no mention of enlightened masters in the entire manual. Chu Li kept the small manual in his arms. He wanted to go back and study it slowly. He would take away first and then look at the other things in the cellar. A treasure sword, a treasure knife, and a few other precious antiques. Chu Li was not interested in precious antiques. He was not short of money, so he no longer wanted money. However, it was not bad to bring them back for Co. Sure to play with. They were all unique top-grade antiques. He wrapped them up and swept them away. Then, he appeared in the Tianshu courtyard in a flash. The Tianshu courtyard was brightly lit as if it was daytime. Co. Sure had just finished her dinner. She was wearing a loose pink robe and was walking around the courtyard lazily, admiring the moonlight. When she saw him suddenly appear with a bundle, she smiled. "What did you do this time?" Chu Li said, "There's something good." He placed the bundle on the stone table as he spoke. He untied it and revealed a few antiques. Co. Sure sat down. When she saw these antiques, her interest was piqued. Her body was too weak in the past, and she could not make any strenuous movements. She mostly read books, played the guzheng, or admired and played with these antiques. Although she was not obsessed, she treated it as a hobby to cultivate her mood. "Where did you get this?" She took out a jade rabbit and played with it. She shook her head lightly. "This jade is not bad. It's a pity that its carving skills are not as good as yours." Chu Li said, "I got it from the Crouching Bull Mountain." "Did you kill that guy?" Co. Sure did not even raise her head. She asked casually. Chu Li said, "It will take a while." Chapter 571. P.S. Yesterday in the book review section, a lot of readers criticized me for digging my own grave and burying the hole too deep. Many of them were so depressed that they took it down. I should have posted both chapters together. It is indeed my fault. I sincerely apologize. Sure raised her head and looked at him with her watery eyes. You couldn't kill him? Chu smiled. He's a powerful person. Don't talk about killing him. I'm lucky to not be killed. Sure's eyes flashed and showed an interested expression. Is the young lord of Crouching Bull Mountain really that powerful? He's just from a first-rate sect. Chu always gave her the impression that he was extremely powerful. No one who went against him could win. Only forces like the four major sects could go against each other and share the limelight. The disciples from the four major sects were the elites of the elites. They had deep foundations and were not comparable to the High Duke's public house. He could even faintly gain the upper hand, but he couldn't even defeat a master from a first-rate sect. This made her very surprised and very interested. Chu said, he got the Cloud-slashing treasure manual. Sure was surprised. She then pursed her lips and smiled. Someone really got the Cloud-slashing treasure manual? Chu said, I think it's been a few years, and he's cultivated it successfully. Both the Cloud-slashing power and Cloud-slashing sword technique are cultivated to a high level. If it wasn't for the help of the formation, I could only run for my life. This is interesting, Sure smiled. There's a young master that you can't defeat. Is the Cloud-slashing treasure manual that powerful? Although Chu was not the top youth master, he was not far from it. Among the young masters that he had met so far, like Fa Yuan, Lu Yurong, and Meng Ji, he could suppress them and even kill them. Chu nodded. The Cloud-slashing treasure manual is an antique study that can be mastered quickly. The person who created this hard technique is really powerful. He changed the 7 forms of divine knife into the 7 forms of godly sword and spent a great deal of effort. It was already so difficult to modify a martial art, let alone create one out of thin air. He admired the founders very much. Mastered quickly, Sure became more interested. How fast? I really don't know. Chu shook his head. But it's so fast. I'm worried that there will be repercussions. Sure said. Should we find someone to practice with? Miss, what do you think? I can't, Sure rejected without hesitation. I don't want to cultivate. Fighting and killing is too boring. She really had no interest in practicing martial arts. I'll do it myself then. Chu said. Zhuge Tian relied on the Cloud-slashing power and the Cloud-slashing sword technique to force me to retreat. It was so frustrating. Sure could not help but laugh. Chu shook his head and laughed. She was so happy to see him suffer. Sure asked, then, is his father even more powerful? Even better? Chu nodded. After all, he's the leader of a sect. His cultivation level is deep and profound. Then you have to be careful. Don't let them know that you're the one who killed them. Sure said. Or else you can only run for your life in order to avenge your son. Even if Chu could not beat her, he could still outrun her. That was why Sure did not mind that he was at a disadvantage. It did not matter if he could not beat her. Chu nodded. How are these antiques? I'll play with it for a few days. Sure said. If you want to sell it, I'll sell it for you. Forget it. Chu shook his head. I'll just keep it. Up to you. Sure lowered her head and picked up a jade figurine. Chu returned to his courtyard and began to study the Cloud-slashing treasure manual. The imperial residence of King and was very quiet now. The last time they killed 10 grandmasters, they had completely suppressed the people who were ready to make trouble. Chu dispersed all his inner energy and began to cultivate the Cloud-slashing power. In order to maintain the purity of the Cloud-slashing power and imitate the cultivation process of someone who had never practiced martial arts before, his body was empty. There was not a trace of inner energy. Spiritual energy did not enter his body. He only relied on his spirit to move through his meridians according to the Cloud-slashing power. His spirit was strong. Soon, a trace of essence was converted into a trace of inner energy. This trace of inner energy slowly circulated and became purer in his body. However, it did not increase in strength. It just kept getting purer. In the end, it was like a real hair floating in his meridians. Chu was deep in thought. Suddenly, he let out a smile. The cloud-slashing power was actually of the same origin as the heavenly demonic power. It was completely different from the normal martial arts heart technique. The normal heart technique absorbed spiritual energy and essence to strengthen the body. As it moved through the circulatory cycle, the inner energy would gradually grow. The cloud-slashing power, on the other hand, was pure inner energy. It was compressed and condensed. It became purer, but it would not grow. If it wanted to grow, it could only devour other people's inner energy. He tried to inject spiritual energy, but did not devour it. The heavenly demonic power was also strengthened by devouring external energy. However, it was a picky eater. The heavenly demonic orb did not care about ordinary inner energy. It would only devour extremely pure inner energy that entered. The cloud-slashing power was not picky. It could devour any kind of inner energy and then use the heart technique to purify it. Chuli instantly thought of using the cloud-slashing power to devour ordinary inner energy. After purifying it, it would be devoured by the heavenly demonic orb. This way, his speed of improving the heavenly demonic power would greatly increase. He saw the heavenly demonic power as the hope of ascending to the enlightened master's boundary. It was the profound martial arts of the 33 heavens. As long as he cultivated it to the extreme, he would definitely step into the enlightened master's boundary. Before this, he had always been troubled by the slow progress of the heavenly demonic power. He needed to exchange blows with top-notch masters and devour their inner energy. There were too few such masters. If he relied on them, he did not know when he would be able to step into the enlightened master's boundary. The cloud-slashing power gave him great hope. With this technique, he did not need to rely on those top-notch masters and take huge risks. The power of the cloud-slashing power was also extraordinary. It was strange and strange. There were very few ways to deal with it. In particular, the cloud-slashing sword technique was extremely fast. It was the fastest sword technique he had ever seen. If he could integrate it into the 7 forms of Divine Blade and combine speed and exquisiteness, there would not be many in the world who could surpass his sword technique. When he thought of this, he looked excited. He took out the secret manual and began to study the sword technique. When he was modifying the 7 forms of Godly Sword, he studied the sword technique in depth. When he looked at other sword techniques, it was as easy as a butcher dismembering an ox. The cloud-slashing sword technique needed to be used in conjunction with the cloud-slashing power. Only an extremely pure inner energy could unleash an extraordinary speed. The heart technique of the sword technique was especially amazing. It was activated through several meridians to reach the fastest speed. Unknowingly, a night had passed. He did not sleep for the whole night. In the morning, he appeared at Crouching Bull Mountain and saw the 2 people in the formation. Xiao Xin was lying on the ground. He looked dispirited. There was already a layer of stubble on his chin. He looked extremely haggard. Zhu Gutan, on the other hand, looked refreshed. He was stretching his limbs. Chuli shook his head and disappeared in a flash. He returned to the courtyard. Lung Xiao and Lung Qing were already cultivating in the courtyard. When they saw him, they greeted him and continued with their sword practice. Chuli smiled and went to the Tianshu courtyard. After eating breakfast with CEO Shi, he left the residence. Qin Jin and the other 3 were already waiting outside. They looked serious and looked around with bright eyes to prevent anyone from rushing over. Chuli smiled. It should have stopped for a while. You don't have to be so tense. Qin Jin looked around and shook his head. I feel that the atmosphere is getting weird. I think someone is going to fight again. I have the same feeling. Centurion, be careful, Feng Jing said. Chuli smiled and nodded. He left the imperial residence and walked towards the secret guardian's hall. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.